answering questions, Q&A on that by 8:30. But what he said as I was talking about our woes with why is the Trio Pro pilot taking so long, that they spent 2 years trying to get them to approve something that never touched a control surface. And that what happened is his contact at the Chicago ACO changed. And the ACO is the office that approves STCs and other NORC things. And he said, when the new person came in, he said, send me all of your documents. And he said, I'll try to read them over the weekend and get back to you next week. And he said they sent him 5,000 pages that the FAA had asked them to submit. And the guy came back and he was like, well, everything's in order. And he said, you know, it would have taken about 30 days to get this through. So it seems to be somewhat dependent on who you get. And his opinion was that some people in the FAA in these approval programs are pilots and some are not. And that the FAA's, you know, he wasn't critical of, he wasn't actually really critical. He just said they're kind of doing the best they can with who they've got. And he was very philosophical about the fact that in theory, something that should have taken him 30 days took 2 years. But it did make me really want to start pulling all of the strings that we have to go and just get somebody to in the 30-day area, go look at this autopilot, because it really is going to make us safer and more capable. Almost all of the 180s came out of the factory without autopilots. Most of the 260Bs and many of the later twins came out of the factory with autopilots. And some of that had to do with the fact that they were more common later in the Comanche production period. And some of it had to do with the price of the airplane. The 180s were the lower cost models, but you know, there's no question they make us safer. Anyways, back to the, so the last question, Chris, are you good to record now?
I believe I'm recording.
Chris, are you recording?
When I hit the little 3 dots, it says pause recording, so I believe I am.
Good deal. Hey, thank you all for stepping up to save the day with when Pete had his thing where he got taken down. I'll text him and let him know we're covered and he's going to feel a lot better. So I'm CJ Stump. I'm normally flying out of Vermont. I just got news that a burnt valve on the 180 on the number 2 cylinder, a burnt exhaust valve, has been rescued. And that I'm going to have her back in a week or 2. So I'm pretty excited about that. And sometimes I fly a 260B that's based in Westerly, Rhode Island. Next person, jump in.
They didn't take your cylinder off to fix that valve, didn't they?
You know, I think that they did have to take the cylinder off, yes. And I got kind of a smug text like, well, and the reason that that's so important to me is that if anybody needs a cylinder, try not to need a cylinder right now, because you can't, Lycoming, they're unobtainium, you can't get them. And the cylinder rebuilders are all backed up like 2 to 3 months. At least that's what I'm hearing.
Here's a skinny flange or a wide flange? Narrow deck or wide deck?
Yeah, narrow deck or wide deck. I think I am narrow.
I think in a month I'm going to have 6 narrow deck cylinders and they're all working just fine.
Oh, in that case, and actually an A&P that's on the meeting right now just messaged me 2 weeks for a cylinder. So I'm not sure why I was getting told so much longer, but good to know. So you're gonna have 6. You're gonna have 6 narrow deck cylinders.
Trying to. I think I've got Lycon talked into letting me take the cylinders off and send in the rest of it. I'll have to make some plates to put over the holes, you know, to keep the rods from banging up the holes where the cylinders go. But that's the plan. I can't see sending them out there and having them put in my boxes from a new cylinder to send them back.
Oh my gosh.
So
yeah, if you're willing to let the Comanche community know about that and make you an offer or tell them how much you want, go ahead and put a note in the trading post, and we will make sure that people are aware that they can get, you know, good cylinders.
Yeah, I'm gonna compression tech them before I take them off, and they're working just fine. So yeah, I'll put those up. I'll have, you know, Lycoming boxes to put them in and all.
Wow. And you know how to find the trading post form? It's on the Northeast site.
I'll find it.
Okay, good. It's
I haven't
under
got them off yet. The airplane's over in Tennessee somewhere, and I want to get over there and fly it. So don't count your cylinders before they're pulled.
Great. And
How do
Pete
you know
Morse
if
just
you have a narrow
messaged
deck or a wide? I'm sorry. Go ahead, CJ.
Oh, go ahead. Nope, you go ahead, Michael.
How do you know if you have a narrow deck or a wide deck?
Nuts. If you got genuine, real, regular looking nuts, and the flange is about 3/8 thick, it's what they call a wide deck. If you got the kind of inside nuts that are goofy looking, it's a flimsy flange, like I got. These
I
are the
will
nuts
have
that
to
hold
look
the
at.
cylinder down.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I'll have to look at that. Huh.
So, all right, if you have anything to sell or anything you need or anything you want to trade, there is a buy sell. There's a trading post form on the Northeast website. Go to northeastcomanche.org and then look for under the blue stripe on the top, look for a link that says any form links, like NE space form links. And Pete Morse just got home, so he'll be popping in at 7:30. Normally we would be starting right now. I want to do a special call out to Michael Stopperton. Happy birthday, Michael. Thank you for
Oh.
being here.
Thank you very much, CJ.
Thanks for pulling up our cool topic. A quick, I don't want to delay much because we're actually going to try to stay on a schedule tonight. Ooh, very new and different. So I do want to just quickly,
CJ, I'm
there
gonna
are a
mess up your
couple of
schedule.
oh, go ahead.
I can do that. I can do my PowerPoint real quick.
Okay, sounds
This is
great. Then
yeah, hang on. Oh, come on. Okay, I'm sharing my PowerPoint, and here it is. This is what's going on tonight for Comanche August 12th. And we're doing two things: the laser altimeter study, install and question and answers, and also robotic tugs and other ways of getting your plane from there to here or here to there, whichever. The other thing that's kind of neat tonight is that we have some fly-ins going on. In 2 weeks, we have the fly-in at Sky Manor, which was going to be the election one, but we had to delay it because we had to work on verifying our email list and all that kind of stuff. There will be a notice going out by way of ComancheTown to tell you all about the election. Then is August 28th, not too far away. We have a Southeast tribe is doing their Bud Breakfast Festival thing where they're joining a thing down in Carolina. So it's going to be really great. September 25th now is going to be our election get together. It's an in-person one or by request if you need a paper ballot. We're trying to do it in person as much as possible because that's the best way we can verify who is actually voting. And with that, I'll get rid of the share. And I am already recording on my computer, so we're good to go.
And then just two quick things. Scott, do you want to just give a very quick overview on the shoulder harness and wing jack group by special that and its extension and how to get your express interest to you?
Sure. All you need to do is send me an email. If it's just for the jacks, then I just need your name and that you want to purchase the 24-inch jacks and whether or not you want a tail stand. If you're looking to purchase any of the shoulder harness offerings, then I'm going to need the registration number, serial number, and then the aircraft owner's name if it's not yourself. I don't need to know whether you want the inertial or the fixed, but you can put that in there as well. Just primarily, if it's going to be an initial STC installation kit, then the kit includes the mounting hardware, the instructions, the STC, and the front restraints. If you're buying the replacement belts, then the price that you see is going to be per seat. And if you're looking at the SOARS airbag, then what Alpha sells is just the STC and the mounting brackets for the harness that you have to purchase directly from AmSafe. I think that should cover it. If you have any questions, just send me the email. My email address is posted in the chat, and I can do any follow-up questions from there.
Scott,
There is-
I have a
There's
question
a
for you.
form on the Northeast Comanche website to put your name on the list for both the laser altimeter and for the seatbelt buy. It's on the go to northeastcomanche.org, and on the the form links page. That's the upper right-hand side of the links on the main page. If you go to that page, you will find a link to those forms.
And Pete, can you send everything that's come through that form on your list to Scott Marchant
Sure, I
at
can do that.
scott.marchant@gmail.com? And
I
what
will
we're
be
trying to
happy
do,
to.
especially because this closes Friday, is to confirm that we've linked everybody up. And then just a little note of congratulations. The folks from the Laser Altimeter will be here later, but they're mostly here for Q&A. The news today is that 37 people have opted to jump on that. It's that one has gone like wildfire, and it's at the 30% discount to the point where they were like, "Are we going to lose money selling you this?" And it's like, no, we got real close to their margins, but they took pity on us. I said, I said to them, we have, we have these wonderful airplanes that aren't made anymore, and anything that keeps us from losing an airframe is really valuable to us. And mostly we need good piloting skills and good maintenance, but I think the conclusion of the community has been that at this price, which is now down in the $600 and something range for the part, and a reportedly about a 2-hour install from some of the guys that have done it. It does depend on your audio panel and stuff, but so that is good until the 20th of this month. And so but just the thing I wanted to tell everybody is they did this group buy with the Cessnas, the Bonanzas, and the Moonies, and they have never had a response like this from any community but ours. And Garmin said the same thing. They said, "You are the best organized, most vocal community we have dealt with." And and as you know, Garmin changed their whole certification process and covered all of the singles, and is now doing the twins for the GFC 500, because as a community we organized. So just a little pat on everybody's back. Way to go, gang. Whether you got it or not, you were part of this. And now I'm going to turn this over to Michael, and just to say thank you for bringing in just such a very cool and fun thing. Happy birthday once again.
Thank you.
Over to you.
I'm actually going to introduce Barbara James, who's my wife, and she's going to be introducing Anthony and Tracy from AC Air Technology. Barbara, you can unmute and go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, Anthony. Hi, Tracy. So I'm really delighted to introduce these two fellows. I've known them for at least 20 years. And I first met Anthony Chan when he was landing his Gazelle helicopter on a little postage stamp of a trailer at Chino Airport. And I'm getting a little choked up thinking about it, because we've all had quite a history together. Anthony is probably, well, by far, he's the most skilled pilot I've ever flown with. He flies Gazelle helicopters. He has an Epsilon. He has, oh gosh, a Turbo Commander, and he has 7 or 8 airplanes, a Mooney, you name it, he has it. And I call him a flying from the seat pilot, since he built little aircraft. And I don't know, that was back in the olden days. I guess they were radio controlled or remote controlled, but he learned as a kid how to get an airplane out of a dangerous position very quickly. And it's been a real joy to be his friend over the years. To his right is Tracy, who I've also known probably for at least 20 years. And Tracy is his right-hand engineer, lead engineer at his factory in Chino, California. And for many years together, they have manufactured plumbing parts. If you have a faucet in your house, it may have come from their factory. Right now, they're building faucets for the new Wynn. The Wynn is going through a remodel in Vegas. And so that's what they're doing right now. But about 10 years ago, Anthony was getting bored with what he was doing, and he decided he was going to do something new. And he came up with this idea for this remote control tug. And we were there the first year that Anthony showed it at Oshkosh. Was that 2013, Anthony? 2012? Yeah. Yeah, well, all we had was a prototype. And that was a wild trip. It really was a wild trip. Look where you've come. And now you have a helicopter tug perfected and all these other tugs, and so excited for you. So it's my pleasure this evening to introduce Anthony Chan and Tracy Hagstrom from AC Air Technology.
Before you do that, honey, I'm gonna show a quick video just for fun. Oh, sorry.
AC TrackTech, the world's first portable aircraft tug, introduced to the aviation industry.
Sorry.
For the first
Let's do
time
that all over
during
again, guys. Sorry
EAA
about that. I
Oshkosh in
completely blew it.
2012, due to its
Unique design, durability, and performance, the AC TrackTech has quickly become the
I'm gonna restart that, guys. I am really sorry. That was my mistake.
December 17, 1903, Kitty Hawk. After multiple failed attempts to successfully fly and land the Wright brothers flying machine known as the Flyer, Orville Wright was exhilarated by his piloting success today. However, after the excitement was over, he was overheard to say, "Flying is lots of fun, but putting this airplane back in the barn is a real pain." Since then, many methods of towing aircraft have been endured by die-hard pilots determined to find a more convenient and economical way to park their airplanes.
Anthony and Tracy, welcome to ComancheTown, and take it away.
All right.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
thanks. Thank you for inviting us, to this community. We should start.
Well, we heard about this meeting last night, so we had a lot of time to prepare. So we haven't had really any time. But anyway, we put some stuff together. I want to kind of just show you what we've got, our tug, and I actually have another video of that Michael did. He's pretty good with videos. I'm going to share my screen real quick, and hopefully the same thing doesn't happen that happened to Michael just a second ago. Let's see if it works. Okay. Hang on here. I got to click the things at the bottom. Okay, here we go. All right, let me go to when you share the screen, you get that banner at the top and it kind of messes things up. Okay, here we go.
I have a couple videos. I actually
Got it. That's not the one I want. I want.
Did you want the
this.
Comanche one?
Yeah, I got it. I got it.
I have that one too. If it's
Okay.
good, I'll do it.
So this is kind of a fun video that Michael made. I'm just going to play it real quick. And this shows our product in use on a Comanche. Okay. Let me get this back here.
Does it really make all those funny noises?
I'm sorry, say it again.
No, I added that in for your amusement, actually.
Okay. All right. And I got one more real quick one I want to do while we're at it. This one's only like 20 seconds long. So let me get this one. This one's also Michael. We got a lot of footage of Michael using our tug. So let me expand the screen here. Okay, here we go. So there's a picture of a happy customer right there. I'm going to continue on. There's only 10 seconds. All right, that's it. So let me cancel all this stuff.
Michael loves his tug, and he's the envy of Deer Valley.
Yeah, everybody who sees this tug just absolutely, it's definitely got some wow factor and you know, toy factor to it.
Yeah.
It's
So
been a really big help for me, actually. I'll talk more about it when you guys get into your thing.
Yeah. Okay.
How it's actually helped me.
So, like Barbara mentioned, we started this about 10 years ago. Anthony has a hangar full of planes, and he's the brainchild behind it. He definitely, thought of it and came up with these ideas. And I'm an engineer, so he throws them on my desk, and engineers like to solve problems. So I threw it on, on the screen and came up with this. So what we've come up with, the tug that Michael was using there is our model. It's called the T1 V2, and it's rated at 3,500 pounds. And that's like the perfect size for a Comanche. If you're towing something a little bit bigger, like a twin Comanche, you might have to go up to the next model, the T1 X2. But the T1 V2 is, we sell it right now for $39.95, $3,995. I would be interested, but I can't see everybody on the screen, of how many people actually either have one of these already, and I know Michael does, but there might be some others, or how many of you have not ever even seen this tug, because it's rare that we come across that. But the tug is completely remote controlled. It's battery operated. It's got a lithium-ion battery. We put a lot of work into this thing, and it's not just, a lot of people look at it when we first came out and they say, oh, it's a toy. It's a remote control car that's been kind of messed with to work with and it'll work for a little while. Ours will work for a long time. We still have tugs out there that we were sold 10 years ago, and they're still being used. But battery operated, remote control. It's got it's all machined. When people get these things, they open them up and they can't believe the workmanship in them, because it's all CNC machined here in Chino. So it's made in America, which is kind of nice. It's rare these days for anything. And we do most of the machining and assembly right here. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to it, Anthony.
Well, you introduced most of the stuff. I have to say.
Yeah, it's like going to a show, so I'm just giving my usual stuff.
So Tracy, maybe you can pull up your website and just start, kind of go through some of the different tug options that are available, and maybe show other aircraft that are being used. And then CJ, you were talking last night when we were rehearsing about this, that some of the benefits of this tug are for it, if you're in situations where your hangar is in a bit of an incline, or the ramp is a little bit of an incline, it could be a heck of a job to push this tug by yourself. And I happen to, I had some medical issues in the beginning of the year, and I have back problems. And this tug has been a huge benefit to me with regard to being able to take care of my physical well-being, because this thing popped just like you saw in the video. I take this tug and I pull it out, and you can take it with you. But I don't generally, because I usually fly somewhere where I know I can just pull straight in, or I know that I'm not going to be, wrangling the airplane by myself. I'll usually have some people with me. But generally speaking, if I'm alone, I'm going to take this tug with me, because I know.
Yeah. We were having some fun last night, to answer your question, Michael, thinking about the fun things you can do with a little robot tug, in addition to putting drinks on it and running it around the party to making sure everybody gets served.
Well, at Oshkosh, we were kidding around about mounting a chair on it so you can drive around. Not only move your airplane, but you can move yourself.
And that that's a seriously legitimate idea, if you think about all the things. But honestly, this is a little bit of a different tack for us. Almost always the ComancheZOOMs focus on things that are safety or efficiency enhancers. And in this case, this tug is just here because it is so cool and so fun. But as we started to think about it, we also started to really feel like what you guys have done is create a really a future looking thing. It's as you pointed out, it's small enough that it can fit amongst other airplanes in the hangar. The fact that you can be your own wing walker, and that, when you're trying to maneuver a plane out of a packed hangar, that you can be sitting there with your, with your joystick while you walk on either side to make sure you don't clip somebody's wing or trade paints with anybody else. The fact that I can take those lights on it and send it pointing at whatever part of the airframe I want to crawl under and look at. I mean, even an oil change sometimes when I'm trying to get in there and, like get my safety wire undone, and then I got to go and get my, my thing unscrewed and something stuck. Or if I'm trying to figure out where the heck that leak is coming from, not that we ever have leaks, but, and not that I'm an A&P or anything like it, but, I had a little leak, and, you get a little bit of oil under your engine and it looks like the geyser has erupted, even if it's a teaspoon. So I started to think of all sorts of ways that I wanted to be able to have something where I could be like, hey, go shine a light over here. So it sort of became this crazy thought about all the useful things that you could do with a little robot tug that had lights on it. And only some of them were tugs. But the other thing that we talked about that was a little compelling to me is, do you all know what happens if somebody overturns, rather than saying, do you all know, can somebody step in and say, what happens? What is the danger? And feel free to just jump into this if you overturn your nose.
Your steering limit. I can talk to that because I've actually went up to the Piper people at Oshkosh, and I said, what's the deal with a lot of their planes, the M500, recently the Malibus, all that class of plane, and I guess it even goes all the way back to Comanches, is if you oversteer it, there's a mechanical stop that gets hit, okay? And it's not that hard to break that stop. And if you break through that stop, and this is what he told me, and someone could probably elaborate on it, but there's wiring and cabling that goes all the way back to the rudder, and that will be compromised as well. You're not just breaking this little block off from the front that you can weld back on. You're basically screwing up all of the wiring and cabling all the way back to the rudder, and a lot of the electronics that are connected up to that will get ripped out too. So that's my understanding from talking with the person at Piper. I don't know if somebody else has a little more information on that.
I do, Bob Picker. I had a 250 Comanche that one of our partners parked someplace, and they grabbed it with a tug, and they turned it far enough to break the shoe that centers the nose wheel steering when you retract the gear. That's a big biggie.
That's a biggie.
So the big problem is that that's a direct connect, and I'm not an A&P, so check anything that CJ says. Do not take anything that I say that's mechanical exactly. But my understanding is that because this goes directly back to your rudder, your control cables and your rudder are going to basically be overstressed, and something is going to have to give. So you're going to be looking at best an inspection. And you're right, if you have servos, on bridle cables from your autopilots connected to your control cables, which in a Comanche, we don't go to the bell cranks. We almost always go to our control cables with the servo will go with a bridle cable and a clamp onto your control cable. You may be inspecting that as well for your pitch control.
Yeah, actually, it's Josh Simpson here, and Katie's over in the corner.
Hey, Josh and Katie.
Hi. We're considering getting a tug. Actually, you can oversteer the front wheel with any tug, right?
Yep.
And we're considering it because it looks like it would work for more than one airplane, and we've got a tight hangar and with 3 airplanes in it, and the idea of being able to wing walk as you go in is pretty attractive, and the fact that that tug would work for our Cessna as well as our Comanche.
Josh, I can speak as a 5-year user of that tug. I have not over torqued my nose gear because I'm very careful about it. I keep that part wiped off, and I can actually see where my limits are. So I'm very careful with it. I mean, you could be careless and over torque it, but if you're paying attention, you could do the same thing, just like you said with your steering with the steering arm that comes with the Comanche. You could oversteer it if you're trying to get it in a tight spot.
Yeah, and one of the things too with the tug is, well, we have another tug that has a Lazy Susan on it, and that one's it's a lot more money. So I'm not going to throw that out there that's going to be your instant solution, because it is a lot more money. But the Lazy Susan, if you have that, it will stay straight so that your wheel does not turn. It doesn't even get close to the limits. And you can turn that tug 90 degrees, you can turn 180 degrees underneath the wheel so that you can take your plane and rotate it around basically on your mains without stressing your steering limits at all. But back to the tug that is suited for your plane, the T1V2 without the Lazy Susan, one of the things we always tell people is, this is remote control. It's very easy to do. So you could make a 10-point turn if you have to, because it's so easy. You're going back and forth, but you're moving a joystick instead of having to push it back and forth. So you can make like I say, a 10-point turn. Usually you'll get it within, a 2 or 3 point. But do you ever do that, Michael?
Oh, absolutely. Matter of fact, there's times where I don't hit my mark when I'm pushing in, so I pull it back out and I straighten it out. I usually use the nose gear and the tail as my guide, as I'm steering it in. But like I said, it's very, very maneuverable. And the best part is I'm not touching the airplane, breaking my back or pulling a hernia,
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah. But a lot of people have multiple planes. I know, everybody here's got a Comanche, but you might have, 3 or 4 other planes in there as well. And, going with the next size up with the Lazy Susan might be a good option for somebody that really wants to stack their hangar, because you really get a lot of maneuverability with that. You can almost turn your plane around in your hangar if you haven't, if the wings will clear, you can do it. So yeah, I've noticed a lot of questions coming up on the bottom, and as they come up, I'm like, man, that's a good question. I'd like to answer it. I heard a couple already. Should I just go ahead and answer some of those? Or?
Sure.
You should. Yep. What we usually do is I'll often read the questions in the chat window. What I'm going to ask you to do, because we have some people dialed in, is to just go ahead and read the question and then answer it.
And Tracy, if you could start from the first questions that started to come in about the tug, so you can kind of go down the list in order.
All right,
sure.
Let me go back up here to the top.
Just a quick note then. I'll go ahead and lead off. Is that the one with Margie's comment? Michael. Because Margie Leggett, who, by the way, I just want to congratulate for winning the EAA Young Eagle Coordinator of the Year Award. Margie from Washington is also Margie, you're the airport coordinator for Washington State. I always get the title mixed up.
I'm the executive director for the Washington Airport Management Association.
Cool. Anyways, Margie also just had this great, she actually got flown out to Oshkosh to give this great EAA award. And she just commented, I've had this tug for 3 years and I love it.
That is the first question. Thanks, CJ. I'm gonna mute.
Yep. Good question from Pierre, though. How does it perform on a slope?
Yeah,
and
that's
there's other questions about grass and wet surfaces. So throw them
Yeah,
all out.
and even snow. Yeah, those are great questions. Those are questions we get every, at every show we go to. People come up and how's it work on a slope? Or, well, it works great on a slope. That's the short answer. You're gonna have enough power. The power is there. What the limitation might be is the traction. And you need to have the nose wheel on the tug, the weight of the nose wheel to provide the traction. And if it gets too steep, the traction will start, it'll start to slip. It will not lose power though. I mean, the motors will keep going. So if you are on a bit of a hill, and it would take quite a bit of a hill to have to go to the next model up, you would have to go to the next model up, which is T1X2, and that has wider tracks and a little bit bigger footprint, so you get better traction with that one. And also it has a bigger battery, so if you're going up a hill, you're burning more power. And if you have the smaller battery of the T1V2, it's great on flat ground, but if you're going up and down hills, you really want to get that bigger battery as well. So slopes, not a problem. There's the next one. Snow is not a problem. I get people every time, especially up in Oshkosh, they're up in the middle of, the frozen tundra, and it always comes up, how's it work in snow? It works okay in snow. They always want to know ice. They always come up and say, how's it work on ice? It works on ice to an extent. But at some point, everything's going to fail on ice. But we have video on our YouTube channel of a guy towing his plane in the snow, and he's just cruising around, and it's really easy. He's having a great time. So yeah, it works good in snow. It's better than tires. So if you had a tug with tires, it'll work better than that. So that's how it works in snow. Another one of the questions says there, I own a T-Mini for about 4 years, still works great on a tail dragger. Yeah, it works, the same tug works on tail dragger or nose wheel. So it doesn't matter. There's adjustments to adjust it for the smaller tire on a tail dragger. So that's great. I'm glad to hear that from Dean. Marty Hinch says, for DIYers, would you sell plans for it? No. There's a lot to this thing. We've had DIYers try to make these themselves without any plans or anything, and there's just a lot of complexity to it. We wouldn't. We're in the business to sell tugs.
Jump in here real quick and just warn you. I warned you that Comanche drivers are sort of remarkable. So what Marty does is he's a NASA scientist and engineer. He actually is a rocket scientist.
Okay. Yeah.
And Katie Coleman, who's also on here, her other airplane is the space shuttle. So I did warn you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So the answer on that one's no. I guess I can just leave it at that. Yep. Then there's Pierre asked, what about the performance on a slippery hangar entrance? Well, that brings up a good point. Just slippery hangar floors, the entrance, anything. It's mainly when you're loading the tug under the wheel that you're gonna find it might slip, because until you get the tire on the tug, you don't have all the traction you need. And some really slippery floors, it's a bit of a problem. So what we recommend, and it's really super easy if you do this, is you just put a little bit of weight with your foot on the back of the tug, just straight down. And I'm talking 25 pounds. You're not jumping on it or anything. And it'll get that front roller underneath the wheel. And as soon as it gets like half an inch under, you can let go and it'll go right on. And then once the wheel's on, it's going to be fine on the hangar floor. We also get questions about, does it scratch hangar floors? No, it does not. It's distributing. I mean, most of you are going to be engineering type people, and you know that the pounds per square inch are going to be much less with tracks than with a tire, because you're spreading it out over much more inches, the same amount of force. So anyway, we have the next question from Chris. How does it do on grass or over a bump? It does great on grass. With those tracks, once again, you're getting really good traction, and over a bump, it does really good because you're spreading it out. And a bump, one part of the track will hit the bump, but there's 75% of it that's not on the bump. So it works good on bumps. Let me see here. Marty once again says, we do have a slight slope getting into the hangar. We have no problem pulling it in and out. Okay. So we have a slight ridge between the hangar and the asphalt. The tug does fine, but we slow it down to go over the ridge. Yeah, when you have little ridges in the hangar doors, one of the things that happens is it's not the tug. The tug will go right over it. You can actually go over like a curve on a street with the tug, but it's the mains. When the mains hit that, it wants to try to stop it. So sometimes, depending on how high the ridge is, you might have to put down a couple little pieces of plywood in front of the ridge. You got like a 1-inch ridge, put down a piece of, ½ inch, just a 1x1 square piece at each main, and it kind of eases the mains to go up over the ridge. And generally that seems to work for most people. Dean Lake said they do offer one with the lazy Suze. I kind of went over that. And need to leave. Okay, so that's Bobby. And all right. So any other comments or questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
This is Margie. And when we got our tug, we had to adjust the, I don't know what you call it, but the inside part to the size of our front tire. And I know you've mentioned that people can use it for multiple planes, but if I don't know if a Cessna tire is the same width as a Comanche tire, would it make any difference if the tire doesn't fit in there tight?
The Comanche is a 6x6 tire, which is around 16 to 17 inch diameter. Width is 6-inch wide to 7-inch wide, depending on how much pressure they have on them. The other Cessna, most of them is 5x5, which is about 14 inches, and the width about 5 inches wide to maybe 5.5. So you don't really have to adjust the cradle from one to the other. You probably have a little bit sloppy inside the cradle between two airplanes, but it won't. I always tell people, you don't have to worry about a little bit sloppy on that situation. You still can use them both. Unless you have, like a tail wheel, a really small tail wheel, you might, the main thing you probably want to adjust the width to the narrow to grab the tire so they won't spin inside the cradle.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So Margie, real quick. So have you used both airplanes in the tug successfully, or did you think it was too loose, or?
No, I only have one airplane, but other people were asking the question and I wasn't sure because I know we had to adjust it when we first received the tug. So
yeah,
wasn't sure.
Yeah. Okay, well, good, thanks. That's a good question. Okay, any other questions or comments. I didn't get a chance to show the website. Michael was suggesting maybe I show the website. Our website address is acairtechnology.com. So, I mean, if you want, I can show you the website real quick.
You can actually, you want to type that into the chat, or would you like me to?
Yeah, Michael can do it. First time.
All right.
So I was just on the website, and you have quite a listing of all your parts and stuff. So it's not a problem ordering a replacement battery for one at some point if it needs it, or?
No, it's not a problem at all. Even all the parts, because like I said, we make those here. So even if a part is for an older revision tug, we have the drawings, we have the CNC programs, we can make one, but we have a lot of inventory on some of the, even the obsolete or older tugs. So yeah, it's not a problem. And
if there are real issues, do you ever refurbish them, or what do you recommend if we have one that might need a little work? Because I have a friend of mine has had one for quite some time, and I'm thinking about buying it from him, but I don't know if it needed something or not. I'm trying to find out.
Yeah, we get all kinds of different responses to that. We get people that send them back to us, and then we'll refurbish them and then send them back to them. We get a lot of DIYers that want to do it themselves. We got full drawings, for the whole assembly, so you can take the thing apart, and it's got all the parts listed on the drawing, so you'll know exactly what part numbers and how it goes together and everything. So
that's great.
I'm sorry.
That's awesome, because so many places don't want to let people do their own. So it's just great that you've got parts listed and you're willing to help people. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
So
I'm actually doing a video right now for removing the motor, which is, it's quite a few steps, and I'm doing that and going to put that online. But we're constantly doing videos to show how to repair stuff, and because every tug that's out there that's working good helps us sell more tugs. So we want every tug to be in great shape out there.
Hey, Tracy, you want to talk about this particular tug that's coming out that actually comes apart? Can be put in any baggage compartment?
Yeah. Okay. So we've got a lot of requests for people want to take their tug with them. And what happens is someone will have two hangers. They have their summer hanger, up north, and then they have their winter hanger down south. And they don't want to have to buy two tugs for their two different hangers. So they're like, man, if I could just take my tug with me, it'd be so much better. And so we came up with our most popular tug is actually the T1X2. And that's bigger than the one I've been talking about for the Comanche. That's the next size up. And the T1X2, we took that exact same tug and made it so you could take it apart into 4 separate components, each one weighing 25 pounds or less. Most of them weigh 25, and then a couple of them weigh a little bit less. But you can take it apart, and you can put this into any baggage compartment that, usually it's the door in the baggage compartment you have a problem getting it into. So this thing, once you get it apart, you can put, a couple pieces in the baggage compartment, a couple pieces underneath the seat. You can spread it around wherever you want to, and there's no tools required to take it apart. It's all within a matter of 30 seconds. You can take it apart and then put it back together. So that's a new one. We actually have it on our website, and we're going to be actually assembling them. In like next week, I think is when we're going to start assembling them and shipping them.
does it reassemble itself?
Yeah. you have to say, Alexa, assemble my tug.
It only take about less than minutes to do it. Yeah.
About how many minutes, Anthony?
A couple of minutes.
Less than
a minute.
Yeah, less than a minute. And it's actually these quarter turn quick turn nut wing. There's just quick releases. Yeah.
Kind of like putting your bicycle tires back on your bicycle.
Yeah,
Even faster than that. It's literally a
quicker than that.
quarter
Yeah.
turn, very precision tool coupling. It's the coolest
Yeah.
thing ever. The tracks come off, the motor comes off, the plate comes apart.
This is
Yeah.
what happens when the people who make your high-end faucet fittings and have to keep the water in them to look pretty start making tugs for airplanes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
You end up with perfect functioning things that last a long time. I love it.
They're
So-
watertight, I can tell you that.
Well, good. So when we start to put the tray on it and use it to send drinks around, now I know when I spill the drinks because I go over the lip of my hanger, which happens to be slippery, that I'm not going to ruin the tug.
Yeah. And then even more, I think even a little more exciting than the one you can take apart, Michael, is the one that we've been working on for a couple of years now. And it's one that Barbara mentioned earlier that Anthony's a helicopter pilot. You know, he's got all kinds of helicopters. Well, we came up with a tug that can move the helicopter really
Do you have a video you can show really quick of that?
Sure.
Because
Yeah, I
that
do.
thing is totally awesome. You want to
It
see
is
some
awesome.
engineering
Let me,
technology.
let me share my screen real quick here, and I will bring up. It should be right pretty quick. Let me see here. Okay, let me go to here.
And you'll note there as they're bringing this up, that little note that Michael put at the end that said it doesn't really make those adorable R2D2 noises, but if you can
Right.
get George Lucas to give you permission, I totally think you should build that in.
That would be cool. Okay, so let me see here. Is it?
I actually can't believe I haven't been dinged for that, because those they were actually available as what do you call it, freeware, those sounds. So I just put them on the and each one of those sounds is separate, so you kind of, you know, as the tug was going back into the as the aircraft was going back into the hangar, that's when I let out the little R2D2. Here we go.
Okay, sorry about that. Kind of went on it. Okay, so that's how it loads.
Run full screen on that.
This is a couple of minutes. I'll just run it for a few minutes there so you get an idea how it works. So the good thing is it'll work on almost any helicopter. Yeah, okay. So anyway, the cool thing about it is it's all completely hands-free as well, just like the tugs for the planes. And you know, it just makes it so easy. We showcased it at the Heli Expo, not this year, but the last, or in 2019, and they were just loving it. They were all over it. So anyway, I'm excited about that.
Can I ask a question for that's really unique to us, which is that we're trying to use your tug to go back and forth between a Comanche and a Cessna 172. I think you were talking about needing a spacer for the 172. With that spacer in there, will it still work for a Comanche, or does that need to be taken out in between?
Yeah, good question. So the 172 has wheel pants, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Some 172s, they take them off and it's not an issue, but anyway.
We go for speed.
Yeah. Yeah. We sell those up in Alaska. They go, wheel pants, are you kidding me? So, but anyway, yeah, the spacer just locates on a couple holes. It just sits in there and you can take it out really easily. If you've already contacted us, we probably sent you a form, a PDF file that has 3 dimensions you need to measure on the wheel pant, and we can tell you what spacer you'll need to make it work.
Yeah, you and I have been going back and forth last week about this.
Okay.
So would you, is it easy enough to take it out that you would move the Cessna and then take that thing off and then scooch the robot over to the Comanche and move that?
Well, to be honest with you, you probably don't even need to take it out. You can just leave it in. It's not hard to take out. There's no tool. I mean, you just lift it out. It's just sitting on top, and there's a couple pins holding it in place so it doesn't move. But you can just pull it out. It's really super easy to. But you probably don't even need to. You know, if you're on flat ground, you're probably okay with just leaving it in for both.
Slight incline.
Slight incline, okay. You'll have to try. I mean, every case is a little bit different. I think you'll be okay leaving in, but if you're worried about, you know, not having enough cradle on the wheel, then for the Comanche, pull it out.
Well, it only take about 2 seconds to take it off.
Yeah, it's fast. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Where's the one that you take apart? You said
That's
it's
that's a T1X4. Are you on our website?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's under the medium, and it's a T1X4. And
Sure. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Doable feature. Yay.
Yeah.
You know,
Tracy,
it
why
does it
don't you
all.
Tracy, go ahead and share that on the on your screen. Go ahead and share your screen and bring it up on the website. Yeah.
You want me to share
for everybody who may not have access right at the moment?
Okay, hang on.
Can you buy just 1/4 of the tug when you lose that part?
Hang on. Let me go to.
Probably.
I think it's
What
a
do
serious
these-
question.
What do these weigh?
Tracy, you can hit mute on that video.
I'm gonna go to our website here real quick.
Yep.
Okay,
And they
so-
weighed, I asked that question about weight last night, and I was told that for our model, it's about 60 pounds.
That's
Yeah.
the non-disassemblable one?
The non-disassembleable one.
The disassembled one is right here on the screen, and it's a T1X4, and it's about 95 pounds. This one's a bigger. This one's got the bigger battery. It's twice as big. It's got the wider tracks. It's got 4-inch wide tracks. The smaller one that I was recommending for your plane has a 3-inch wide track, and this one's got a much more adjustable cradle. This thing will work with almost anything. A Cirrus is one of the most difficult because the wheel pant's so low, and this actually works with a Cirrus. So this is it, and it basically breaks down like it's shown there on the screen into 4 separate components. You got all the another kind of side advantage of this thing is you can take it apart. If you have a problem with one of the motors or something, you can send just this part of it back to us, and we can fix it, rather than having to box the whole thing up and send it to us. Or if you, need to get new tracks, you can send us these rails with the tracks, and we'll put new tracks on it for you and send them back. Just opens up a lot of options.
Yep. Just want to mention something that Chris Barber put into the chat window, which I think is key, because we've had several prop strikes with tugs or tow bars connected. And Chris's point that you will not hit your prop if you start up with one of these under is simply because I know of a couple of engines that have gone through a complete teardown after a start. So that's actually kind of a good feature.
Probably paid
we
for
have
itself the first time you did it.
It's a little hard to anticipate. Just a quick, basically a 5-minute warning, because we have people also that are going to start talking about laser altimeter installs. But I wanted to just lead this discussion a little bit into some of the future work. You're working on a tug that can be disassembled. You had mentioned some thoughts about guidance for like such as metal sunk into the ground or special paint or anything like that. And some of the things that you can and can't do with that, just because it's fun to talk. You guys have been pretty future oriented here. You mentioned last night you could not have built this 5 years prior. The battery tech, go ahead, and if you could just talk a little bit about the maturation of the technology and then the avenues you've explored, both the ones you can't take and the ones that you can take. That would be a really fun, quick discussion and a great peek.
Sure. Okay, well, we get a question a lot of times, people coming up and they're saying, can you make this thing autonomous so that you just, it puts your plane back into your hangar by itself? And the answer is, yeah, we can do that. We can do anything, but it's going to be a $30,000 tug. So I don't think anybody's going to, the technology's there. We know that because you can buy a Tesla that can drive through city streets and navigate around people and everything. So getting a tug to put your airplane back in the hangar is not, it's not science fiction, but it is expensive. And to do that, we would price ourselves right out of the world. Nobody would buy it right now, at that price. Later down the line, these things are become, like CJ mentioned, the technology is advancing so fast. There might be the ability to do that with AI and vision systems and everything that who knows, within the next 5 years, it might be a possibility. One of the other, I noticed someone just logged in, they said, sorry, just joined, interested in the price. And that kind of made me think, there was some talk about some kind of, group pricing type deal. And what we kind of decided is we would like to extend to the Comanche, your group is, our margins are very slim, so we can't give you a lot of discount. But what we can do is we can extend a free light option, and the lights are a $250 value. So if you need lights, you get them for free. And if you don't need lights, you might consider, that those lights would be pretty handy. And CJ actually alluded to it early on. She said, you could pull your tug up underneath your plane, direct the light up underneath the plane for servicing. And it's a very expensive flashlight, but you're getting it for free. So, might as well. But anyway, the price that, again, for Serge St. Hilaire, I probably murdered that, but the price is $39.95 for the T1V2 that will work really well with the Comanche on pretty flat ground, little slopes. The slope up to the hangar, the slope's just enough for the rainwater to run off. But any more, if you have a real steep slope, you might have to go to the next model up. Anything else, Anthony, you think you gotta wrap up with?
Anybody have a question?
I have one question more, which is, are there hundreds of your tugs out there? Are there many hundreds? Are there thousands? I don't know. You've been making them since 2013, you said?
Yes.
Yeah, we estimated we close to 4,000 around the world.
Yeah. It's between 3,500 and 4,000 around the world. We sell all over the world. And so there's a lot of them out there. I'm still kind of amazed when we go to Oshkosh and people come up and they say, I've never seen that tug, because we're almost in every airport. And when they get into an airport, it almost is like contagious, because one person gets it and then their hangar, next door neighbors are like, that's cool, I'm going to get one. So usually one gets there and then there's going to be 5, or 6. Bless you.
Never seen one.
One more question. It looks like you've got a 4 to 6 week backlog if we send an armored truck out to you tomorrow.
We give the maximum lead time. I'm always surprised because our backlog is getting more and more, and for some reason the guys out there, well, they're working more hours definitely, but for some reason they keep delivering or getting these things out quickly. So we were given 4 to 5 week lead times at Oshkosh, and we're actually delivering tugs right now for Oshkosh. So, you know, it's like 3 weeks. So, but we like to tell them the maximum it'll be, and then when they get it in 3 weeks instead of 5 to 6 weeks, they're really happy. If we told them 3 weeks and they got it in 3.5 weeks, they're going to be mad. So.
Good attitude. I am going to, Serge, you've got your hand up and it is 8:29. So what I'm going to suggest is that, Serge, you jump in, but after that, are you, first of all, just thank you so much for coming in and talking to us. Would you be willing to stay in? And then folks, I'm going to suggest we move to laser altimeters because we have Jeff Gaskell who installed, and he's here with us and he's got some key photos. And then Ned is here also, who created the laser altimeter in the experimental world and brought it over to certificated. But people can still ask their questions if, Tracy and Anthony, can you continue to keep an eye on the chat window and knock answers back?
I actually got to, I've got a thing I got to go to.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but I do
in that
want to
case,
thank,
you know what? Throw your questions into the chat window, everybody. And well, you guys can give them your info, but we can also, if you can throw your questions into the chat window, just like we did with Garmin and others, we can lob the list of questions over to Michael and Anthony and Tracy and get a file posted back out to the group next week.
yeah, that'd be great. And you know what? I really want to thank you, CJ, and everybody for allowing us to be on. Michael kind of set the thing up. He's a great fan, and we're
oh yeah,
a fan.
Michael and Barbara were amazing. It was just amazing to find out about this technology. And I just want to say real quick, so Serge, you go, because you know you got a question there.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I'm a little late to the meeting. It's just a short 2-part question. First part, weight-wise, I've got a Comanche 400, which is a little bit heavier than a regular Comanche. I was wondering weight-wise with the tug. And secondly, I don't have the fortune of having my own hanger, so I'm in a communal hanger, and there's a slight an inch and a half lip to go by the door. Do you think the tug would be able to handle that lip, or would that be too much for the tug?
Yeah, it should handle the lip. I mentioned earlier you might need to, if it's too high, you might need to put down like a piece of plywood right where the mains go. The mains are the problem. It's not the tug on the nose wheel. The nose wheel with the tug will go right over it. As far as the weight goes, that tug, the T1V2 is rated 3,500 pound gross takeoff weight of a category plane. So it's not the actual weight, it's the gross takeoff weight. I think your Comanche 400 is probably under the 3,500 pounds. But if
Actually,
it's not,
36, yeah, 3,600, I think.
36. It should be okay. We do also, just a real quick note, we do give a money back guarantee. So if you get it and you try it out and just figure it's not going to work, you don't like it, you don't like the color of it, you know, whatever, if you return it within the first week, we'll give you a full refund as long as it's in, you know, perfect shape. If it's run over by a car or something, we'll reduce the price. But we do like to do that because we realize this is a lot of money, and you know, people want to be sure that they're going to have something that really works. And anyway, we back it 100%.
All right, thanks a lot.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, just a huge thank you to everybody. Just a big shout out to Barbara and Michael, partly because the story I heard is that way back in the beginning when you guys were like, should we do this? And they were there, and Michael said, he was like, that's a great idea. And then to find out that you've gone from, hey, I need something to drag my airplane around, do you think we could make a robot do it, to I've sold 4,000 units worldwide, is a very cool innovation story in the aviation community. And it's an American aviation story. And in talking with a bunch of people recently, it turns out that a lot of American innovation in the space of aviation has moved to China, to Belgium, and to Czechoslovakia. And yet here we keep finding story after story, air conditioning units, tugs, the laser altimeter that we're about to move to. These are stories here. And I just want to say that I think that this is huge. So thank you so much for coming and talking.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you,
Barbara.
guys.
Thank you, Anthony and
Thanks,
Tracy.
Barbara. Thanks,
Yeah.
Michael.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
All right. And everybody, and any further questions, just toss your questions into the chat window. We'll scoop them up and shoot them over to Barbara and Michael and Anthony and Tracy. And you guys keep making cool stuff and talk to me. Let's find ways to get your margins better so that we can do group buys.
Okay.
I'm good at that. We'll find ways.
All right. Thanks again.
Yeah, no, all good. Thanks again.
Thank you.
And I am going to just do a quick update on the laser altimeters and group buys. So I think Nidal, Rob, and Jeff Gaskell are both in the room with us. Is that right, you guys?
Yes, how you doing, guys?
Hey, good to see you, man. And I know
And
Jeff
I'm
was there
here,
earlier.
yes.
Brilliant. Okay. So just a quick recap that the laser altimeter group buy came to be because Jeff came into the hangar flying and said, hey, I got this cool thing. And then all of a sudden everybody's like, wait, what? And then we started to analyze what the impact of that technology might be on the particular issues we have as Comanche drivers and then just as GA pilots. And and Jeff opened the door. And then Ned and I talked, and the big issue with our Comanches is they're not making us anymore. So every airframe we can save from any kind of an issue is, in our opinion, as Comanche drivers, worthwhile. And so they see, it seemed like a unique fit for improving our safety, but also, every gear up that we have risks having an insurance company decide that we are not worth saving. And, so in addition to increasing the value of the airplanes and insuring them for a little bit more, let's see what we can do to stop these from happening. And if a landing light out or a dark, weird airfield or just forgetting to put the gear down causes that to happen, and we can make it not happen, way better for all of us in 6 different ways. So Ned, when I explained to Ned why I thought this, we had this discussion about general aviation, and then we had this discussion about the Comanche's particular challenges. And I just want to say how grateful all of us are that you stepped up with the deepest group buy ever done. Ned, I think you said we're at 37.
42 by now.
Oh, well, so so just this was, but so many people keep saying, hey, CJ, how do I install this thing? And I'm like, don't talk to me, talk to Jeff, talk to Ned. So I'm going to shut up now, turn this over to you, and just say congratulations to the community for coming together once again to help each other. Jeff, you're bringing the idea up, opening the door. Ned, you're stepping up with your company and trying to help us be better, safer owners. And then community, you're the experts. I'm going to shut up and turn it over to y'all. Jeff, if you need any
thank you
help
for the
screen
rebate.
sharing.
We've already got the
Thank you.
rebate. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I think we have processed everybody's rebate earlier today. So everybody should have got the refund of $46 now.
And this is a little free form, but what I'd like to suggest is Jeff texted me a couple of photos of his install. This really was set up because we had enough questions about how to do the installs. And Jeff, are you set up for screen sharing? Or if you'd like, I can screen share from my iPhone.
I'm not sure.
Okay, let me go ahead and take just a quick moment to screen share from my iPhone. And let me see. So this is not going to be graceful, folks, because I'm on a pretty poor connection. So hopefully this will work well. One moment. Okay. So what you're looking at is the photos, and I'm going to do a quick switch sideways because you can get a better view of the landing height system. Jeff, I'm going to just quickly go through the 3 photos that you sent me, and then I'm going to back up and have you, now that you know what I've got, maybe you could describe what we're seeing, and you can have me move to whichever photo you like. I'm at 1 of 3 right now.
Okay, you're just looking at the top side of the fuel. It's the panel in the middle of the belly of the plane, right behind the landing gear. And it's where your fuel drain and your handle to, drain fuel for fuel check is.
How tall is the box?
The box is just about 2.5 inches.
Thank you.
And the reason I put it there is there's a big hole, there's a big opening above that on the opposite side, which would be the left side of the plane. This is on the right side where this is mounted. On the left side is where your conduits come back. So that area is taken up, but on this side, there's nothing there. There's just kind of a big space to the right, and this is to the right and forward of the fuel bowl on a single. I'm not sure how this would work on a twin, but on a single, this works.
Yep. And another pilot mentioned locating this in the wing root fairings on a Comanche.
Okay, that would be possible. I couldn't do that because I've got the nuts to you rounded fillets or whatever, so it wouldn't work for me there.
And this is another view from a different angle. And then here is the belly of your airplane.
Yep.
And there's the fuel drain, our little crazy little tube there that we dispense fuel out of. And I believe that is your glass looking downwards, measuring your height from the ground.
Correct.
Is there something separates the unit from the, did you put something under it? I see something like black around it.
No, that's just the unit, I believe.
No, the unit would be white. So, and I see the white. If you look at the black screen, there is the white lip. So,
I think that's just a marker pen, the dull
okay.
white. That's
fine.
You're right.
Fine. I thought that you have some kind of a sheeting under it.
Yeah, no. It's mounted directly to the skin.
Which model is this?
This is the 100-B.
Oh, okay, yeah.
No, that's what I was asking. What model Comanche is this? Is the
260B, 67, 260B.
Yeah, 250s are different. I ordered one, so I was curious as to.
Yeah, I don't know if the 250 is different or not in that area. I would think it'd be pretty similar.
I think when the gentleman who makes these first showed them to us, he said he doesn't like the center of the plane for some reason. I think because of exhaust or some other reason. Would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, if it's better to get it away from any soot, exhaust soot. So it depends. I mean, a lot of people will have the exhaust on the right. You can put it on the left side. And if there is no other location, the only location that is gonna see some black from there, just wipe it every 2 weeks. Don't wait for it to accumulate. And generally, laser beam will go across dirt, will go through a lot of stuff. But when it's fully covered with soot, it will start not functioning.
Or
it
no
will not
soil
get damaged, but it does need some kind of a cleaning up.
Okay, with the B model, and it's also added to other models, I've got the dual exhaust. So actually the exhaust flow is to the right or the outside of that. So it's really not an issue on that model.
Yeah, I can see because you have a clean under, so it does show that there's anything there. So that's good.
Yeah. In fact, I get kind of a whitish color on mine, is kind of stains it a little bit. And a white and oil.
You get any nose wheel throwback from mud?
No, I've never really had an issue with that, but I fly off a grass strip occasionally, but rarely muddy.
So is this for everybody? Does that seem the best location that you guys, is there anybody more, familiar with different models to see if there are, location? For example, the Mooney really have one location. They cannot choose anything else. The Piper, Warrior, and Cherokees, there's also one location between the gear and the fuselage. There's one access panel to inspect the fuel line. So that is the only location really they can choose. The Cessnas have several they can pick up, obviously, but I don't know if I'm not familiar with Comanche itself to know if there is like more than one option to put it on. I'm hoping somebody can chime in.
What about further aft along the fuselage? Is that an issue? Does it need to be located forward of the mains there?
Not really. It's in the wing area or wing, lateral area. That would be best because it's not going to have a much angle in your flare. If we have people who have tail dragger, for example, and they want to put it all the way back in the the tail because they want to practice 3-point landing. So it really depends on the way you're flying, where to choose. But the wing area and the fuselage, also the belly along that area, is probably the best because it doesn't change in the flare. It's still within a 2 inches of it. You don't want it to be like 2 feet or 1 feet up. If you put it all the way in the nose, for example, you're gonna have to adjust it, calibrate it to adjust for that. If you put it under the engine, for example, then you have like at least 12 inches of rise when you flare.
I have a twin, so the center of the belly would be fine, but we have 2 of the fuel filter bowls in that area, so that area might be impacted. I'll have to take a look.
Yeah, in the twin, all of the other twins that all the customers, they put it under the belly. They find an access panel, but they don't, obviously, because of the engine on each wing. So yeah, under the belly is fine. The FAA says any access panel. It doesn't have to be on the wing. It can be any access panel, and you can also make your own access panel. So if for a point that you found that I cannot find or use any place, an AMP can make an access panel for you.
Very nice.
Yeah, so you can just put a ring, and then they will cut a hole and they will log it as before you install the landing height, and then the next day he's legally able to use that because he found an access panel there. So that's how it goes.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
I might add that the reason I picked that a couple things. I actually looked out. There's a couple access panels out by the gear. I think another might have worked, but then I spotted this location. It just looks simpler, primarily because all you got to do is take your passenger seat out, take that side of the floorboard panel up, and then you have access to the bottom of that. Obviously, take the panel itself off. And then I ran a wire up by the gear motor. There's access to the well in a single, mind you. And then I had to drill one hole to the right and put a grommet in it to right in front of where the gear motor is. If anybody's, if you're familiar with that wheel well area where you see that the motor and all that mechanism works there. Anyway, but it's clear there's no issues of it touching anything. And then from there, I just went over, and all my main wiring, I'm assuming it's similar on all Comanches, runs up the right side, right underneath the passenger, and right up between your feet and up. And there's a big bundle of wires from the back that all go up there. And anyway, it was real simple to run it that way.
Just to confirm, Jeff, that is correct. There's a wiring channel or conduit that goes under the passenger side seat, and you'll see there that you can actually, if you want to be neat about it, you can take some cable ties and pull back the wiring that's going through there, and then just run your wire. And we found this out when we were designing in fact, Marty, are you still on from Tahiti? Anyways, when we were designing the location to install the autopilot wiring harness, that's when we started to try to confirm, was it the same in every single Comanche? Because we wanted a universal install.
Oh,
so the good news is, yes, that conduit is the same in every single Comanche. And but I don't have the expertise to ask what's the best and fastest way to get that wire from the glass in the laser up to, the audio panel. So that's where you're helpful.
Right. Oh, as far as the audio panel, I'm in the process. I'd already pre-bought. I was one of the guys that spec for 3100. I've got a 55X autopilot. It had one for about 10 years in mine. And so I'm upgrading the 3100. And there was a little delay in that, needless to say. And they wanted to install it in June, but I said, how about September or late September, October, when I'm not flying as much. So I said, well, how can I get to the back of my audio panel, which is buried down kind of almost at the bottom of my center stack? And I thought, and I asked him, said the gentleman here, that does it have an audio output? And it does. I think he said a 0.5 watt or something like that. But anyway, I ended up, as a temporary, I took the audio wires. I had an old phone jack and just figured out which wire was which on the old phone jack off the old headset, and literally just soldered them together, wanted the correct wire to the audio output. And I took this jack and plugged it into the co-pilot's position. This is very temporary till I get it to the audio or to the avionics shop for the 3100 install. And it works. It's got enough audio power. You just listen to it very clearly through your headset.
You said that you take out the floor panel. Do you have floor panels? You've taken your rivets out and upplated them already?
Oh, on the later models, the early models had the riveted ones, all the laters. I think it was fairly early on. They went to screwed type. So yeah, it's easy to get into that area. In fact, I have to take that panel up I take that panel up and the panel right in front of it that gets to your fuel pump, your electric fuel pump. So it was real simple because I didn't even have to take the pilot seat out.
Okay, I want to go through a couple of questions that we received before through email and through calls. You can put the unit anywhere around 360. It doesn't have to be, aft or forward. It can be rotated anywhere. That's one of the questions people asking. And the other one, obviously, most of the audio wire system. In your case, you did the 2 wires because you had to put it in your headset. But most of the audio system itself, in the audio panel, you need 1 wire, only the blue one. Because the other one is internally grounded in the audio panel, so you don't need to use that. You just use the blue one in our system. Those 2 questions is how to wire the audio and how to install it is one of the most asked questions we get. Other than that, the installation is really simple. Obviously, I have to, by default, we have to mention that it needs to be installed by an AMP. It does not need an IA, so no form 337 required. It's recognized in Canada, and I don't know if anybody here in the group right now from Australia. There is an EO order engineering order you have to submit to your CASA, and they'll give you the approval. We already have many customers in Australia, and there's a process, and I just send it to CJ. She'll forward it to everybody from Australia regarding, is there a specific procedure to actually have it installed in Australia?
What does the readout sound like when person's coming in?
We just uploaded, I'm sorry, you're supposed to guys I'm supposed to have sent the audio file to the newsletter, and it's just, we couldn't do it. There is, we just uploaded it. Let me put it on the website now. We just uploaded the audio file into the internet for people to hear it, but I can share it from here. Let's see.
Yep, you should be able to screen share, I hope.
Yes. Share. Are you guys seeing this, right?
Yeah, it looks
Yeah.
perfect.
Okay, so we updated two things. There is a 1-to-1 scale that you guys can print, and that will give you an exact, scale, actual size to help you in the cutout if somebody wants to do a cutout themselves. And then we also added the audio files that you can listen to.
200, 100, 70, 50, 20, 10, 5, 2, 1.
Check landing gear.
So those are the actual announcement that you will hear.
What, the landing gear's not coming to 1 feet? I thought it was the 200 feet.
No, this is the video messages. This is not an order. This is just the audio messages. It will come up at 200, yes.
Oh, good.
Yes. Or 100 or 70. So the system will decide if it's gonna say it at 200, 100 or 70. So there is more than one chance for you to hear that.
How does it
One
decide?
one of those you will get, but see, it depends on the approach. If you're approaching over a lake at 200, it's not gonna announce 200, so it's not gonna announce the message because this is just a reminder. So it linked to that number, 200 or 100 or 70. So in case that it missed the 200 because the unit decided, I'm not gonna announce 200, I'm not confident in the 200, I'm not gonna announce it, and it's accepted 100, it will say it after 100.
Now, just to clarify, the reason that you mentioned a lake particularly is that a laser is not going to be sure it's got a good reading over water. Is that correct?
Correct. It's if the water is crystal clear, it's not chopped water, it's gonna see the bottom of the lake. It's gonna go through the water and come back and measure the bottom.
What you're really telling me is you haven't sold a whole lot of these to float plane pilots.
No, we're not actually allowed. So,
but just to clarify, so if we're coming in over a solid surface, then we're going to get the 200-foot reading.
yes, except let's put it this way. So far, 99% of everybody who's using the 200 said that they always get 200. But in the documentation and in our, when we talk to people about this, we say the unit may skip because we have several layers of checks before the unit goes into announcement mode. We actually have over 12 steps to check, and it have to go through them one by one. If one of them was rejected, the unit is just going to say, it's going to scrap the whole data and start collecting data. How the unit operates, it's because it's running all the time. It's seeing everything all the time. For example, my first unit, the first unit that I installed on my plane when it was first designed, I had no check. So I was seeing birds. I was listening to birds. I'll be flying at 1,000 feet at 1,600 on downwind, and the unit will tell me 20. And I will look around and I see a bird passing by. So yeah, it will detect any surface as long as it sees a target and it comes back from it within my range, which is 200 feet, is going to tell you that you have one at 149. There's something. So obviously that won't work in real, normal operation because, it's going to be confusing listening to a lot of things. Even though for Reno racers and people who are doing formation, we kept that unchecked because they want to see how far is the other wing from their wing. So they're able to say, yeah, they are 5 feet apart. When they come close to each other. Yeah, so we have special editing, but for the certified one, we have 12 steps to check. If one of them rejected, the whole set is rejected. So how it works, the system, because it sees everything, it builds a profile of the plane, how the plane is flying. If it sees you are in a descending pattern that is, let's put it this way, making sense. You're not doing 3,000 feet a minute descent. You're doing, up to 1,200 or 2,000 feet descent, consistent reading. It measures the time it takes between every 5 millisecond read and your descent rate. And then it ends up saying, okay, the pilot is descending. So it takes that check first. Once that is approved, It goes into, okay, how far I am from a surface. 300 feet, because the unit is capable of 330 feet. It starts reading numbers at 330 feet. And it starts seeing that if something happened, let's say that you are 205 and unit is saying, okay, I'm ready to tell this guy you're at 205 feet, let's say, vertical. And then a truck passed by, you are over a highway. So now the unit is seeing 180, the truck is 20 feet high. Now the unit is seeing 180, so you can say, no, something wrong. I cannot go from 205 to 180 immediate in 1 millisecond. Okay, so I'm not trusting this number, I'm not gonna mention it. And it goes into checking mode. So that's why the higher numbers, 200, 170, those can be skipped. 50s and below, you almost will never be skipped because you should be on top of numbers at 50. You wouldn't be on top of a lake or top of a hill, even though some people do it. But at 50, you probably in a proper 3-degree approach angle, you will be on top of numbers at 50 feet. So you are already in hard surface. There's nothing should be blocking you from hearing 50 and below. But the 200, 170, those can be skipped depending on really where you are. We have some people saying that my airport is really at top of a hill. So they're really, when they are at, half a mile away, he's still 200 feet, to the solid ground. But immediately, suddenly, he will be in 50 feet. So the unit's really not telling him anything until he's 50. He just skips all the numbers and then starts saying him at 50.
That's like the approach to Catalina Island off the San Diego, Los
Probably
Angeles
that's
coast.
one of the customers, who told us this, so it really depends on the environment of your approach. Trees, for example, if the unit sees a layer of trees that they are really condensed, there's nothing between them open for it to see the ground, it's just seeing the top of the trees, it's going to consider it as a surface. But if the tree in an empty space, it's going to say, no, I'm not going to trusting this number, because it's going to see, 200 immediately is going to see one, let's say the tree is 10 feet. 190 immediately is going to say 200 again, because the next tree came up. Then it's going to reject these numbers. It's going to say, no, something is wrong. This is inconsistent with a proper approach. Then I'm not going to say it.
Can I interject?
We prefer not to mention it in addition or instead of saying something wrong.
Can I ask a question then? Interject here. I bought one of these, and to me, one of the best features of it is that at nighttime, I know how high I'm above the ground, for instance, in an engine failure. And trees and pastures and swamps are different height. To a pilot, that's good information to have. Same thing, you come in and approaching over, a cornfield, and you lose the cornfield as you go to a low cotton field. Do you have any way for pilot discretion, like through Bluetooth or something, for us to change those features, or do you think maybe that'd be possible? Because I'm a country pilot, and that's the reason I bought this thing, is for the nighttime emergency. That's my number one reason. Besides, I can't land the plane.
Yes, no, I understand. There's no option in the Wi-Fi to actually change the settings. We can make it less restrictive, let's put it this way. But it's still, if it's not building a proper descent profile, it will skip some numbers. We're talking higher numbers. We're not talking 50s and below. We're talking 200 to 100. We're talking 100 feet above surface. We're not talking about 50 and below. 50 and below, it will announce any surface it sees. So we can make it less restrictive on the 200 ones. But when you say that you're coming in, let's say above trees, as I said, if the trees is a solid, like a forest, it's going to tell you how high you are from the tree. If it happens that the top of the tree is at 100 to you, at that moment that you're passing, it's going to say 100. And it happened a lot of times that you would be flying, you hear 100, you are on top of a forest or tree. And then the next one after, let's say, a few seconds, it's going to say 100 again. And we get people calling us, it says 100 twice, half a mile apart. And we told them, give us the airport location. We check it out and we see, yes, they are on top of a tree at 100. And then they went higher when the tree went, left the trees. And it says 100 again. And they understood that, yes, now a first 100 is on top of, from the tree. The second 100 is from the ground.
Okay, well, that's the kind of stuff that you're flying around at night. It's nice to know.
Yes, no, that's there. But we're saying something like, inconsistent readings. The system is giving the main control system, the laser is giving the main control system inconsistent reading, like 180, 200, 180, 200. Then it's going to skip that 200.
So if I understand you correctly, Ned, the place where it's going to basically say, I'm not going to be annoying, is in the 200 to 50 foot area. And then below 50 feet, it's going to tell us about everything it sees.
Yeah. And well, 70, maybe I would say 70 below. It's, I am being maybe more cautious telling you this, but, I don't know, Jim, if you ever missed 200, you're probably not. You were probably always listening to 200, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So it's not, we're just saying that just to have people not freak out if they one time they went somewhere and they didn't listen to 200. Let's put it this way. It's not something that you would expect that you're going to be missed every single trip.
Right.
It's just something for us to notify people that there are certain conditions, even though rare, but you may get skipped 200. You're going to hear 100 again and continue from there, do another trip. You will hear 200 on a different airport. Don't assume the unit malfunction just because one time you didn't hear 200. That's what I'm trying to say.
It's going to call the gear at the first altitude. It does
exactly
call gear.
Exactly.
I might throw in on the my system still haven't got it modified for the 200 yet, but I've still got the 100 limit on mine because it was before you got the approval for the 200. But anyway, I've made 2 mountain airport landings that were basically landing over a cliff, basically type landing. One was Steamboat Springs, which has about a 200-foot drop off right off the end of the runway. Worked perfectly there. Just bang, the minute I came over the threshold, it said 150 and boom, I was down. And another one was Kremling. And it was interesting. This is where it was different because there's kind of a hole right in front of the runway. Otherwise the train's high, then it drops off, then it comes back up. So it hit 100, said 100, then it was quiet and I could see, and then sure enough, once I got over the actual approach end of the runway, it said 100 again, and then just continued on down like it should have. So it really worked perfectly in those 2 mountain environments with the irregular terrain.
I really like hearing that, Jeff, because I have an airport I have to fly into where there's a similar gully in front. And when I go in at night, I'm always, especially when it's more like dusk, I'm always trying to make sure that I'm actually in the right height above the ground, especially when the VASI's out and I'm like, oh, well, here we go. It's long enough. And then I just usually land a little long. So there's no question. And, and sometimes winds get weird over things like, holes in the ground and stuff like that. So I like the fact what you've just told me that it's going to call 100 or 150 or whatever. And then when I go over the hole, it's just going to shut up and then it's going to call it again when I get back to what I'd consider normal terrain.
Just one experience, but I hope to get more experiences with that. But so far it worked just as it should. Yeah.
And let me add, while we have this discussion, let me add something that we got from a recent, feedback from a pilot. You guys need to have a mental, in the back of your mind, if in any event, unfortunate event that you needed to do a gear up landing, either switch off the unit or do a math calculation in your mind because the numbers will not be accurate. The numbers you're going to hear is to the bottom of your wheel. Your wheel is already up. So if you're coming in for gear up landing and you hear 2, you are closer. You are as if the wheel was down. 2 is from the wheel down position, not from the wheel up. So you're gonna actually wait for it to say 1. You still, a little bit higher with the length of your landing gear from the ground, because somebody just did a gear up landing using the system. He had the system installed, and he said that he worked it out, and it helped him when to flare, when not to stall the airplane when they were coming in for.
Oh, interesting. So I was going to ask you that, like, if I, for some reason, was going to do a gear up landing, whether on purpose or not, whether it would give me like a -1.
No, it's just for it. It's installed, let's say, at 15 inches. Let's say, for it, it's gonna do the 0 based on that 15 inches, or the 1 based on that 15 inches installed height. So, for example, in my Lance Air, I installed it in the gear wheel. It's not going to talk to me when the gear up landing at all, because it cannot see anything. It only sees the door, which is a constant, distance. So it doesn't talk to me when I do gear up when I go gear up low approaches to the high speed, 10 feet above the runway. I don't hear anything because my gear is up and my sensor is inside the gear wheel. So, but obviously it's good. It's better not to have it there. It's the wrong location, because in emergency, it will really help if you do the mental math to say when you hear 2, you are not really 2. You're really 2 based on if the gear was down, not if the gear is up. So don't flare. Let's say don't flare at 1. Wait a little bit more just to get it a little bit lower, closer to the wing, basically.
Yeah.
I was guessing that if the thing got down where it knew that you didn't have the gear down because you got lower than that altitude, it'd start calling you an idiot and nagging at you.
The gear message is just a reminder.
No, I'm joking. It's a humor. If you got to -1, we were wondering what it would start saying to you.
I know. I think it's a feature. You have a real opportunity, Ned, to do something cool. Go and add a feature that says if you're at 0, it should really start yelling, "Hey, where's your goddamn gear?"
Yeah, you see, in the experimental world, we do announce 0. 0 is announced. So, and 0 is always while your wheels squeak, you hear 0 at the same time. So that gives you some kind of an assurance that the range is correct. But the FAA did not want 0. They said no 0.
So. You should have it say, "Watch your propeller get smaller."
Yep.
I guess we could just now when we install it, do we use forgive me for asking because I haven't read the installation directions. Do we then configure it for the height above the ground?
Yes, when the first time is installed, before you fly it first time, obviously, you need to tell the unit how high it is from the ground. And before you put that in the Wi-Fi, you connect to the Wi-Fi, you see what the unit is seeing. It needs to be within 3 inches. And that confirms the unit is really, working correctly. So you look at the Wi-Fi, and it will tell you, the unit will tell you, because it's not set up yet, that I see a surface at 23 inches. And you measure with tape measure vertically down. Forget even if the unit is an angle, no, just vertically, from the ground to the unit glass, and you measure it, let's say 22.5. And while it's seeing 23, that's fine. Then put 22.5 or 23, that's fine. There is a 2 inches of error factor there, and it will adjust itself. So yeah, you need to tell it how high it is installed. Cessnas, for example, it's an 80-inch installed from the ground. So because, high wing.
Right.
And I understand that the Comanche is 15 inches from the belly, right? That is really low. That is low.
Yeah, we're kind of sports cars.
Yep.
It's part of the reason that they look so fast, even just sitting on the ground, because they sit there and they look like they just want to take off, even standing still.
Yep.
I do want to do a quick screen share because Jeff, I had taken a snapshot at your panel at ComancheTown.
Okay.
And in your case, you had done some temporary work. Would you mind if I did a quick screen share of
No, that's
what
fine.
you were
Yeah,
doing?
this, once again,
Okay.
this is just temporary.
Yep. But it's helpful to know that it will work like this because for those who've been wondering about installs, this is a quick photo of Jeff's, the right-hand side of Jeff's panel, as you can see, in his 260B. And I'm going to turn this over to Jeff because on the phones, you're going to see a jack. I'm just going to do a quick zoom. So here, Jeff's going to talk about this thing where it's plugged into his phone section there. And then this here where it says laser. And just a quick,
Yeah.
because it's really pretty.
Yeah,
That happens to be this very beautiful panel.
Okay, so this is strictly an
okay, I'm going to
audio
switch.
output.
But yeah, the LHS laser, that's just a temporary spot because that's where that whole chunk of panel is going to get changed when I put my 3100. Just be a fuse and a hole and a better label. But there was a cigarette plug there. That's why it's got that round deal. It's just totally temp. But it's functional till
but it
I
works.
get that changed out. Yeah, it works. Because yeah, you're supposed to have it fused if it doesn't go through the audio panel. So it's fused there with a 1/2 fuse.
Jeff, I see that you have a music input RCA 3.5 millimeter jack. A lot of people uses that as well.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah.
never thought about that. Okay.
And
I just been having the co-pilot use one of the back spots to plug in the headset.
So actually that's helpful. See,
You-
Jeff, worth the price of admission. So I'm just
Yeah.
zooming in on that area. And are you talking about the thing labeled music, Ned?
yes, music input. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a 3.5 millimeter RCA jack, one of those, like a music input cable that you buy and you can cut and you can connect them to the two wires of the audio panel. And just to add on that point, if there is a means for the pilot to switch off the audio, you don't need a dedicated circuit breaker. So for example, let's say you put a jack in the music input and that means that's sufficient legally for you to be able to reach and pull it out if you want to cut the audio, and then you don't need a dedicated circuit breaker. You don't need to dedicate a circuit breaker for it. You can share it with any non-essential circuit breaker, cigarette lighter, a non-essential lighting, USB chargers. You can share the audio for the unit without having a dedicated circuit breaker in the panel because you have a means of switching it off. Either via the audio panel switch if it's connected to audio panel, or via the jack of music if you have it that way, or even the jack of the co-pilot. You can just put it off. So the reason,
if we hook it to our marker beacon or one of the monodial panels and we can't turn it off, that's good enough. We don't need a one dedicated circuit breaker then.
yes, if you hook it up to an audio channel that you can switch off on demand, you can reach out and just click a button and it will mute that channel. Then you don't need a dedicated circuit breaker.
And this information, is it in the install
Correct.
instructions? Awesome.
Correct. Yes. And by the way, we don't recommend marker beacon. It requires a lot of power for that channel. We recommend ADF or COM-free or NAV-free or aux channels. And DME, it's also some panels requires a lot of DME power. So, if the last choice that you have a DME audio channel that is unused, keep that the last choice for you to use. But ADF is really what everybody's uses because there's no ADF anymore here. So the ADF button is really, the one that everybody's remark as LHS and use that button as the audio. The reason the FAA wanted us to have that option of, having dedicated circuit breaker is in the event of malfunction of the unit where it start, being annoying. Let's put it this way. and they don't want the pilot to be distracted by unnecessary announcements, so you can just switch it off. If you don't have a switched input on the audio channel or the music jack, you can pull the jack, then you can put a toggle switch to power off the unit on and off. And if you didn't want to put a toggle switch, then you have to use a dedicated circuit breaker that is of the push-pull type, not just the regular type that you cannot push it back or take it out. So you have to have a means basically to switch the unit off or the audio off, one of them, either by the switched input channel or a toggle switch or a dedicated circuit breaker of the push-pull type. And it's worth mentioning that the annoying part, we didn't find it annoying, but some people do, is if you're flying, let's say 3,000 feet in IMC conditions, and it's, like ice crystals, you are really near freezing level. That ice crystal will develop a surface that the unit will keep telling you about. So you're going to be flying straight and level 3,000 or 5,000, and if you are in heavy rain, while you are straight and level, and there are some kind of ice crystals developing, it will tell you 20, 50, 70, it will tell you where the ice crystals are. So because the laser sees something it returns from, and it is going to tell you that. So during IMC, obviously it's not authorized to be used during IMC, but our recommendation is either ignore it or switch the audio off. Now, if you're approaching in a heavy rain, that's not a problem because you are descending. You're not straight and level. So it's seeing rain, it's reflecting back from raindrop, but you are also descending. So that matches it up, that cancel each other. So you will get the proper call outs on heavy rain on approach. You will get call out of the surface found on IMC conditions if there are ice crystals or near freezing level.
And the call out for birds?
Oh, you're not going to get birds, no.
Okay, that's been resolved.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, no. All of this testing is just to get away from this. And also, you're not going to get call out, even though the unit knows you're taking off and it sees you taking off, but it's not going to tell you the height while you're taking off.
What about on a near midair if you were just slightly above another aircraft?
If it happened, which is going to be very rare, that it's exactly 100 feet and you are descending at that time, it's going to tell you 100.
It would measure closure rate.
It will tell you how far it sees a surface if you are descending. So let's say there is a straight and level airplane flying at 1,000 and you are flying at 1,800, and it happened that you are descending, you're going down, and he's straight and level at 1,000. Once you are 1,200 of it and you're still descending, for it, that's a surface. It thinks it's a ground.
Okay. And so the other way around, if the other airplane was climbing and you were in whatever flight attitude?
Correct. If it's climbing in a same speed, consistent, always under you, and it's climbing, following you with the same speed, so it sees a consistent decreasing in distance in a consistent manner. For example, if it happened that he's just veered off 1 degree and immediately the unit sees nothing because you're flying at 5,000 feet, it's just going to cancel all the data set. It's not going to tell you anything, and that's part of the check. But if it's, I don't think it's going to ever happen that somebody's climbing on the same speed where he's always under you and the unit is always seeing that. So
if they were passing left to right under you or something like that.
Oh, that's not going to be, no, you're not going to get anything, no. You're not going to get anything. Just passing by, you're not going to get anything.
And for those of us, I keep missing on the times when this group buys come up, and I came in to the Zoom calls a little late on that. Is there still opportunity to get in on the group buy price, and how does that work for those of us that did not initially?
Yes, if you go online and order and use the Comanche 2021 coupon code, the code is Comanche 2021. The coupon code is valid for another 8 days.
Yep. So in short, it goes until the 20th of this month, and it's is it landingheight.com, Ned? You know?
Correct.
Yep. So, and the thing that I think many of us, because there were something like 100 Comanches all told, 90 in vintage, 32 up on the flight line, and a bunch in the North 40. We all just flew in on the Endeavor Lake approach, and most of us flew in at 2300. And there was a whole bunch of other airplanes down at 1800. And when we got a little low and they got a little high, I'm actually thinking, that might be when it would tell us there's an airplane below us.
Interesting.
I see there's a couple of questions. One from Dean asking if we are doing any enhancement. Yeah, we will be able to update anybody using a firmware update using Wi-Fi. You can use your iPhone or iPad or PC to upload to latest firmware if there is a need. For example, the one who have 100, they can move on to 200 just with a firmware update. So obviously, yes, there's up and also in the event that needs to come back to us, we can always send another unit and then the other unit comes back. And then Ron said it is not deducting the rebate when making an order using the coupon code Comanche 2021. I'm sure it's working. Everybody's been using it, so I'm not sure. You need to put the Comanche 2021 and hit apply.
You know what? He might be picking the wrong product. Can you just make sure it's the 100B? I think it is.
Oh yeah, it needs to be 100B. It cannot be the other one. The 70-foot only. The offer is only for that 100B model, the first product on the list.
Ned, could you repeat the answer to my question about getting in? The audio just completely glitched on my end when you responded to my question about getting in on the group buy deal. I'm sorry.
Yes. Oh, sorry. It's the coupon code is Comanche 2021. So if you go to landingheight.com and go to the first product in the list, it's 100-B, which is the 200-foot model. And there, once you add it to the cart, there's a box which says coupon code. You can put there Comanche 2021. One word, obviously, and hit apply, you should see $278 off on your cart. And that means that the coupon code was accepted.
Great, that sounds good. I'm in for annual right now, so this might be a really dandy time to fiddle with that.
How long is your annual? Do you think, because we are starting to ship the first people who did the order starting Monday, and hoping that we're going to finish within a week, everybody, or move on to the next, part of the next week.
How long is the annual part? I've had the airplane less than 3 years, and it's always longer than I anticipate. Let's put it that way.
Oh, I know the feeling. I am an A&P myself, so we always like to work more on the annual. So.
Yeah, and it's a twin with a lot of mods, a lot of STCs. So yeah, thank you.
May I ask how has this been accepted at flight schools? Is it helping students learn how to flare?
Well, yes, we do have a huge interest and installation in flight school. We have somebody who fitted the entire fleet, 20 airplanes. Their main reason, really, in addition to student learning, is really to save them money, because people keep going solo and break their landing gears. So really they wanted the first 4 or 5 solo of a new student to be using the system, and then they switch it off for other flying. But it's really because part of the statistics, the AOPA and the FAA shows that just the last 10 years, there were over 3,300 student solo accidents. Non-fatal, but still an accident instead of an incident, because of hard landing. They're flaring too, early. They're coming to high speed. So yes, the school has been very interested in this, and mainly really to save the airplane and the pilot, obviously. But they do use it a lot. We have a lot of flight instructors that use it a lot to get the initial student to correlate between what they're seeing, the picture, the side picture, and the actual call out. because it's really easy, you know, for somebody to flare at 5 feet because they think really they're close. Well, they're not, they're really 5 feet. And try to flare at 5 feet, you're gonna end up, you know, stalling at 3 and hit the ground hard. So that's really what they are using it for.
And this was a lot of the discussion that Jeff and I, and then Med and Jeff and I had about why this might be valuable for our airplanes, is that although Comanche pilots are generally, you know, they're complex, high performance retractables, our wing can stop flying a bit suddenly. But mainly we're not making any more of us, and we have this very cool airplane and strut housings on the heavier aircraft are in short supply right now, so we want every landing to be a good one. I mean, there's also the red face factor, but especially we just really value and love our airframes.
Yeah, you'd be surprised that 65% of our experimental sales are to airline pilots. They love it. I mean, airline pilot, somebody who's flying in an airliner, they really understand the need of the system, even though they have 25,000 hours of flying, and you would expect that, you know, that experience, you know, they can land anywhere, anytime. But they, you know, they especially tell us that just going, you know, if they're used to going, you know, Chicago Heathrow for, you know, let's say 100 trips, and then suddenly they ask them to go to Spain, a complete different width runway, and the look, it just throw them off. And that's when the system comes. That's why they also like it in their airline, that, you know, it tells you the height regardless what type, because it is, you know, if I'm used to 75, you know, feet runway in my local airport, and then I suddenly go to a bigger, you know, Midway or Chicago O'Hare, and that's 150. When I know, I think I'm 5, probably 10, because the side picture is different, the way I'm using it. So, and that's one of the main points of the system, is just visiting other unfamiliar airports, the side picture will change. Just having a different length runway, you're gonna really think that you are much lower than, well, though you're really high still, if not using the system. And obviously at night as well, and that's where it helps.
You know, I just wanna say that this is CJ. I'm far from the best pilot. I'm not an A&P, but a lot of people know how to reach me. And so what I'm useful for is I have a big Rolodex. So you know, people are always like, can you connect me with so-and-so? But the other thing is I hear a lot of I need, how do I get this? Or how do I find this person or whatever? And something that happened 2 years ago, I started to realize we were getting a lot of requests from airline pilots who had selected the Comanche for its incredible strength and sort of speed and beauty. The airline pilots in far greater numbers than average purchase Comanches because they're such great airplanes. Usually they say it's because it flies more like what I fly for work than any other airplane I've tried, and they're fun. And they say, and because it's built so damn tough. And then the military pilots, for anybody curious, say that in the opposite order, because it's built so damn tough and I like the way it flies. But the airline pilots have been saying, is there transition training for airline pilots going into GA wanting to get into the Comanche? And at first it surprised me because airline pilots have thousands and thousands of hours. And here I am, because I lack the experience and I lack that history, I was like, wait, you guys know how to fly better than all of us. So I started to say why, and they said, well, a couple of different reasons. One is, if you're an airline pilot, you don't even necessarily check the weather before you leave your hotel room because you know you're going to fly no matter what. And it becomes a little different when you're managing, your own operations. But the second really was just what you just said. The sight picture changes, the landing characteristics are a little bit different, and they know the value of training. And I felt like someday, maybe this group can help us figure this out. There's some kind of wisdom there that I don't quite know how to put my finger on, but if you all can figure it out, someday I'd love to have a ComancheZOOM done by the airline pilots wanting transition training, because I feel like the rest of us can learn something from their reasoning.
Well, one of the things, CJ, is they're sitting about 30 feet higher off the ground. So, they're going from 30 feet above the runway, just sitting there on the ground, to, 4 or 5 feet off the ground. So that's the biggest difference.
Yeah, Craig, you're right on. And I don't know if you all remember, some of us who've been around for a while remember that before 9/11, if you were flying on an international flight, you could ask for the jump seat in anything flying international. I flew the jump seat on the Concorde. And that was the one airplane where I was like, if I'm flying the Concorde, can I have the jump seat? And the answer was yes. So, and before 9/11, if it was an international flight, you could fly in the jump seat. I was flying a Cherokee then. I hadn't transitioned into the Comanche yet. And I did a 747 jump seat landing into JFK where I had to literally bite my tongue because I was used to flaring a Cherokee, and they were flaring 3 stories up. So I think that's part of it, but there's also like because I started to hear it, there's a different attitude towards flying discipline that comes out of being a participant in a Part 135 or a Part 121 operation. And I asked Zach Grant about the large numbers of people transitioning into Comanches now, and he said the blessing we have he didn't put it this way, so I'm just going to say it in my own words. The blessing we have right now is so many military and young or older airline pilots are transitioning into the Comanche right now that to some extent that discipline and focus on training and operations and maintenance is going to protect our airplanes for many of the people transitioning into Comanches now. Feel free to discuss or disagree or comment, but I'm throwing it out there for discussion.
Are you guys familiar with this magazine, Piper magazine? So
yes, I get it.
Yeah, there in the July edition, the Oshkosh edition, an airline pilot named Marty Reedy put a couple of pages a PIREP. Let me see what page it is. PIREP on the landing height system, our landing height system.
Right, I saw that.
Yeah, you saw that? Yeah, it's good. And he really, and he is an airline pilot with 37 years, senior pilot with American Airlines. He's actually the check pilot for the other pilots in American Airlines. And there it is on page 32. So he goes into discussing about the side picture in his experience. And he's also an instructor on a Piper Warrior. And then he talks about his experience with the landing height and how he sees, useful and stuff. So there are airline pilots out there who really, can, pitch in. Maybe we can have Marty come in on one of those Zoom meetings and put his experience in it.
It was that article plus then followed up by your Zoom meeting. And as soon as CJ put the announcement out there, between those, I went back and read it again just to remind me what it was. And I said, I want that. Put the order in. It goes online.
Ned, can you hold that article up to the screen for a moment? You'll end up covering your own face, but so that we can get a better look at it, or rather hold it up to your camera.
Okay, I don't know how far. You can tell me if you want to close up or
a little farther away. Yep. So I'm sorry, back up a little bit.
Okay.
I hate to tell you this, but a lot of people are probably doing screen captures right now.
But I mean, CJ, I'll scan it and send it to you PDF. So what do you think about that?
I think we might. I don't know if we can do that because it's their magazine. I mean, if they're trying to sell it and make money, but it helps us to know that it's there and then we can go get the magazine.
No, I mean, Marty himself sent me a copy of his.
Oh,
yeah. So,
yeah. In that case, if he's okay with that, then yeah, we'll get out there.
Yeah, and I'll send it to you PDF. I'll send you the draft that he sent me.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Back when we mentioned, when we were talking about this laser altimeter back in the early part there, I mentioned that nighttime is when this is very, very helpful. The sight picture is really strange when you come down with the Comanche at night and start flaring a little bit, and the lights are now aiming down the runway instead of down at the runway. And you lose sight, you lose the depth perception at night. That's very helpful for that.
Yeah, and especially if the airport lighting was bad or it's not a moon night, You know, it's there is one of the videos on the website about that night, and the pilot did a low approach 2222111 all the way on the runway at night. So he kept one, foot above the runway at night, just to show, the system. So you can see that on the website if you guys want.
AJ, a number of years ago, I handled the sales of the Maurice Taylor DVDs. And I didn't count the number of times, but it was many, many when the customer was an airline pilot making a transition. And they invariably said, how do you, after kind of beating around the bush, how do you land a Comanche? And after I caught on to what was going on, I said, what speed do you cross the end of the runway? And they were all at 120 or 125 knots. Well, they floated the whole runway. They couldn't get it down. And I simply said, you're going too fast. Get the correct V speed, don't pad it for anything, or you'll look like a monkey every time. They were all going too fast.
Nothing like reading the POH.
You got to fly it by the numbers.
Yes, well, they were flying the heavy iron, and they'd add 5 knots for this and 3 more knots because it's Thursday, and a couple of more knots because it's the last landing of the day. And you add 7 knots crossing the threshold in a Comanche, and you're going to run out of runway.
I will tell you all something that I was a little bit, thought that was cool. So I was doing some research on some of the early history of Comanche support. And yesterday I spoke with a gentleman who was part of the Northeast leadership way back in the 70s. And he flew a Comanche out of a 1,200-foot strip grass that was, behind his house. And it was a 180. And I was like, okay, I get that you could get it in, but how did you handle getting out? And he said, well, if I needed to take 4 adults out, I didn't. He said, I flew out with me and 1 other adult and half fuel. But he said that it's fine. I mean, he's like, there was no problem. I don't know how you all feel about flying in and out of a 1,200-foot grass strip in a Comanche 180, but for what it's worth, apparently it was done for quite a few years. He said, you fly it by the numbers, and he said, I'd have to go back to see whether, he said, but my recollection is I don't know if I even used flaps or maybe 1 knot. So I thought, well, I'm going to go practice that on a much longer runway, but if he could do it, then I want to learn how to do it.
What is the common approach speed on a Comanche? It's a single engine.
Yep, it's single engine. We have our gross weight is max gross is what our numbers are based on. And what's been very interesting is to redo that calculation for what your stall speed is going to be. And then figure out that it can actually be 11 miles an hour or more slower small stall speed when you're light. So it's such as like just 1 pilot and less than half fuel. And then you want to fly at, what is it, 1.3 VSO?
1.3, yes.
What about VGs on these? Has anybody done a before and after on VGs and how that impacts these numbers?
Oh boy. Does anybody, I think that twins are usually the ones with VGs. Does anybody know of singles with VGs? I guess the Robertson Stoll kit. Pete, you had the Stoll kit on. You didn't have VGs on your leading edges, did you?
No.
You had a twin?
No, we had a single with the Robertson Stoll.
Okay.
Or what kind of Stoll was yours, Pete? I might be goofing up.
No, the one that I had was the Stoll kit was on there. There were no VGs of any kind.
CJ, what do you call those things? The little disruptors that disrupt the airflow.
The VGs, the vortex generators.
VGs, okay, yeah, vortex generators. They have only been approved by the for the single Comanche for 3 or 4 years at most. So I don't think there's a lot of them out there.
Yeah, but there are a couple of things. The Comanche is one of the most heavily modded of the airframes because it already came out really fast and efficient. But then we figured out ways to make it even faster and more efficient. So the
Hi,
Metco.
CJ.
Yeah.
CJ, it's Howard Bellsberg from Los Angeles.
Oh, Howard would know.
Yeah, we have VGs, and we've had them on. When we bought our airplane about 8 years ago, 10 years ago, they were already on, and they work great. They really reduce your stall speed a lot, and we love them.
What airplane?
A 260B single.
Thank you.
And does it change your? So go ahead. Next person.
We never flew it without them, but since we've flown it with them, we know our stall speed is much slower than what the book says.
Probably like maybe 6 or 7 miles an hour.
At least 6 or 7 miles an hour slower till we hit the stall than what the book says.
Interesting. The other two things that are supposed to reduce stall speed in the Comanche include the Metco tips. Those are the wing tips that that a lot of Comanches got equipped with, and because they improved roll handling a little bit and reduced your stall speed, and gave you a couple of knots of airspeed, at least in theory. I think the reality was like 1 to 2. And then the other thing was the wing root fairings that are on the trailing edge, right, real close to the fuselage in the back of the wing. And those are, what are they, knots to you? Somebody who's.
Yes, I've got them, and they do help.
What about
landings.
gaps? What about gap seals? Isn't that supposed to help on some of these as well? Rudder,
aileron, not on the flaps.
Aileron and rudder gap seals.
Yes, let me think. Zach said that things you do to the top of the wing improve high altitude, what was it? Is it things on the top of the wing improve low speed handling, and things on the bottom of the wing include high altitude, high speed?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he says gap seals help more in the high altitude speeds. Correct.
And I put gap seal all over my Lancer, everywhere, even flaps, rudder, elevator, the whole thing. And it gave me 10 knots speed extra, and it gave me better handling at slow speed. It didn't approve the stall speed. It's the same, but it's better handling on slow speed when I'm coming to approach.
Yeah.
I feel that on the Lancer.
Gotcha. In the Lancer, you have flaps that are on flap tracks or simple pivots?
No, our flaps are -7 degrees, by the way, when we're flying cruise. They actually tilt up. 7 degrees.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's called -7 degrees because it's not, with the trailing edge of the wing, it actually goes up, and that helps us into putting the nose a little bit upwards. But it's a normal flap. It's a standard flap. Yeah.
Yep. The reason I ask is that our earlier Comanches have a slightly different flap system than our later model Comanches. So the later Comanches have the flap tracks. And by the way, if anybody's got in need of a flap track, talk to Pat Lee. You can contact me for his contact information. But should you need a replacement flap track, like yours got worn and got sticky or whatever, Pat can help you get an owner produced part.
What about the nylon rollers for those flap tracks?
That's a great question. I'll text Pat right now and ask him. He was in earlier. I don't know if he's still in.
I just want to know about them. Is that something I should have on my plane?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I bought mine at Webco when I bought them, brand new.
And they've still got them, right, Rich?
Yes, as far as I know. There's some, I don't know whether they're original Piper, but They are the appropriate material and everything, and it made one magnificent difference in how everything felt when you were running them. So you got to keep them clean. That's the other thing. Got to keep them clean. Don't put any grease on them because it gathers all the dirt and grime.
And Rich, can you mention that again? Because a lot of times people will want to go and lubricate things, and there are a few things on our airplane that shouldn't be lubricated, and I forget what they are.
Yeah, well, these are nylon or some nylon variant. They're not Teflon or anything like that, but don't put any grease on them because they'll get as dirty as the face of this laser. So, and it makes a difference. And I put in all new hardware too.
And by the way, Ned, if there's any other things that have come from the experimental community that are great for making airplanes go faster, you know, like Comanche drivers really like to make their airplanes go faster. So, or anybody else who wants to do innovations, part of the secret goal behind this whole series, you may have noticed that we're starting to try to really look for and feature innovations that either make the pilots more comfortable and therefore safer, such as air conditioning, or things like this laser altimeter. This kind of innovation, we don't want to just showcase the products and focus the safety, but the fact that you can do this, that this is something that we as just, you know, innovators can do. So one of the things that I had wanted to try to do with Anthony and Tracy was to ask them, and I'm just going to mention that between them, they are a mechanical engineer, and then Anthony has skills in electrical engineering and circuit design. And Ned, you are similarly skilled, if I recall, in firmware and software.
Circuit design, yes.
Mm-hmm. And so we're collecting skill sets like mechanical engineering, DERs, software people, circuit people, because more and more firmware and software are becoming important to our airplanes. And the goal here is to just take a look at the richness of innovation. I've been talking with Hans Neubert's son, Eric, about how do we get all of those innovations. For those of you that saw the series on speed mods and efficiency mods, where Hans Neubert had talked about how he's got a normally aspirated PA30 that goes literally 25 miles an hour faster than book, through a series of airflow changes that he made to this engine intake, so he gets a little more power, things that reduce turbulence. These kinds of innovations, we're collecting the kind of expertise, the DERs, the people who've got PMA authority and know how to do it, the people who have engineering expertise in various areas. We want to make a list so that people who are like, you know what, like when you think about it, Anthony said to Tracy, can you make me a robot tug? And they put their skills together, and now they've sold 4,000 robot tugs. Ned, you invented this in the experimental market, is that right? And then went through the North Sea process?
Yes, we started selling it. I mean, it was first installed 2015 on my plane, and then we started giving it to experimental 2016. And it wasn't meant for it to be, you know, like a sold. It's people saw it on my plane, and it's like, make me one. So
yep.
So you
CJ?
Go for it.
Yeah, it's Howard Bellsberg again. You know, one thing we did with our Cherokee was the power flow exhaust. Has anybody fooled around with power flow exhaust for the Comanche?
Yeah, let me talk to that. I'm in the process of buying one of these things from David Pratt, and the power flow exhaust is nice. They try to get equal length tubes in it. They might have tried to tune the length of the tube such that the pulses timed just right where they were even on the little 4-cylinder engine. They got a god awful long exhaust pipe and then a muffler that sticks out in the breeze. I do not see any way to improve David Pratt's system besides maybe putting a jet hot coating on it. So, you know, it's compact. You know, it's what's on the 260. It works.
Well,
Yeah,
you re-
I'm not sure. All I can say is when we put it on our Cherokee, it increased our climb and our speed by probably 5 to 10%.
It's 20 to 25 horsepower added immediately for just that cost. And it does work. I know 4 different people, and I also had a Cherokee 140. What a difference.
It's amazing.
The exhaust costs less than putting in the 160 horse pistons, believe me. But the best exhaust system on any Comanche is on the 260B, which is dual exhaust. And it's too bad you can't go through the process of getting rid of everything else and going to full dual exhaust on all of the Comanches. And that would solve an incredible number of exhaust problems.
I believe that's what David Pratt's making for my 250. And
yep.
And
that's right.
Just to throw another monkey wrench at it. So I'm having my engine built at Lycon. They're going to dyno it. I'm kicking around in discussions with these guys, putting the EGTs on it for my engine monitor system, sending it out there and having a dyno with that system on it, just to get an idea about what my installed horsepower is. I wouldn't send the mufflers out because, you know, there's no point, but I don't see any reason on our Comanche to do anything but what David Pratt has done. I'm not advertising for the guy, not getting a discount. I just throwing that out there. I think that the dyno flow or whatever you call that system, because they probably don't have what we can get, that's the best they can do. Chris,
I don't know if you realize this, but David Pratt's system essentially, he just has the STC to put it on other models other than the 260, but that is actually just the factory exhaust system on the 260B.
I realize that.
Selling.
Yeah, it's a true dual exhaust, and I don't see how you could do it better than what that design is.
True, it's pretty bulletproof.
It is very bulletproof because I put 2 new mufflers on my 260B after I got it, and they were all screwed up and new tailpipes and everything. And I've flown a few IO 540s, and but nothing that would climb like that after I put the different got on 2 brand new mufflers and 2 new tailpipes. And oh, by the way, I went through the injectors too from start to finish. And it's one heck of a good running engine, but the exhaust make the difference. I raced and held our racing records in NHRA, so I know about exhaust to a degree.
Rich, we need to get you and the engine hacking guys from ElectroAir onto the same ComancheZOOM and have a huge just discussion on how to hack, you know, like exhaust and engines, and then throw in Hans Newbert to talk about hacking airflow, and we'll have like crazy machines.
Yeah, and then I'll also talk to everybody. Fuel injection and fuel induction is one of my favorite subjects, and my study of it over the years, early when I did race, I learned about nozzles and I learned about all the other kind of stuff like that, and it gave me a couple of national records, and everybody wanted to know what I did to it, and nobody ever got to see the nozzles. But I also had the benefit of an afterburner flow test bench too. And that's another long story. But the fuel induction makes all the difference in the world, and getting the burn stuff out of the engine makes the rest of it. And dual exhaust is the best for these airplanes. I went through it with the Glass Air too. And that thing climbed like a homesick angel, complete with a laminar flow wing. It was a 300 mile an hour VA, and what a rocket. So I've been around it.
And you're still here.
Yeah, and I had my one and only air crash on the runway 27 right at Gillespie when I made the beautiful landing in the Glass Air, and the right gear collapsed and down the runway I went. But had the plane back in the air in 3 weeks, and that was my one and only air crash. And I hope it's the only one I ever have.
Oh my goodness. And actually, Ned, talk about the Lancer, because that is quite a speedy design. And forgive me for asking this, and we're just about at 10 o'clock. So I guess we should start to shut down, but the Lancer is kind of cool, and not everybody knows about them.
Yeah, can you hear me now, right?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, yeah, I think it was muted. Yes, and following on your previous point regarding what we can move to increase speed in certified airplane, the problem, I don't want to say the FAA have a good reason, but it's really the problem that, for example, I put dual electronic ignition that are variable in the map, in the firing angle, advance angle. I'm flying 8,000, 9,000 feet. I'm seeing 40-degree advance. The engine, it's a standard IO, certified IO 360 A1B6. That's an angle valve, 200 horsepower. So it's like Coming wants it to be 20 degrees advance, that's it. But I'm doing it 40, and I'm doing 7.1 gallon per hour at 210 knots. So
Ooh.
yeah, exactly. I went from Chicago to Orlando nonstop, 4 hours, 20 minutes. So yeah, we can move in, but then FAA does not want variable advanced angle. You know, like Coming comes up with a electronic ignition that is fixed angle. What's the point other than being electronic?
Well, that's why we did a big group buy special for electro air electronic ignition, because that does have approved variable advanced timing.
Very good. So, but would you allow you to put two? They won't, right? They want
Not yet.
Exactly.
No,
So
but
really,
I think that's coming.
yeah, I'm glad. You know, that's what we need to push in.
Yeah.
Yes. The
Electro
other
guys will tell you that it fires well enough, especially when they advance like that, that you don't really need to be firing both plugs at the 40-degree number to get the good firing.
Yeah, no, it's true. The other one is just coming along in the right. That's all it is. I mean, the other one is really useless at that point.
Yeah.
But we can, on our little Comanches, we can send our engines to places and have them come back with a very healthy 250 horsepower rating. We can put that electrical air system on it. We can put on the dual exhaust system. I mean, that's all FAA legal stuff.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And
exactly.
if you want to, if you really, and if my motor's a 2575, if I really want to spend a bunch of money, I could get up to 2,700 RPM, you know, and try to find a better prop than the one I got. But now, you know, you're talking a lot of money for what? Hey, let me ask you about that Lancer. You said you got a 360?
Correct.
So that's not a 235. Is that the same airframe as the 235? Or
It's
is
the
it
same airframe, yes, in the 300 range. It's got a bigger tail wheel, a bigger tail section, and a longer engine mount. That's the difference between the 235 and the 360. It's called Mach 2.
Is that the same canopy as a Dragonfly?
It is similar. It's a little slightly different, but it is tight, about just 40 inches, I think, 41 inches.
Dragonfly wasn't too bad. I was building a Dragonfly before I got lazy and stopped, and they looked awful similar. They're okay, but you know, gosh, these Comanches, that's why we're so slow. We're so big inside.
Yeah, weight as well. Mine empty was 1,100 pounds. So the weight also makes a big difference.
True.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
one of
that's
the
why-
reasons that I'm hearing
that's
that
why
sorry.
Yeah, I'm just saying that's why I suggest when somebody wants to paint, I tell them completely strip the paint to bare metal. Don't put paint on top of the old one, because you know you're gonna gain few knots, definitely. When you remove, you know, a 40-year-old paint, thick paint, and put a brand, you know, even automotive paint, you know, because the newer technology in paint allow you to have a very thinner, you know, weight on the paint, and that will, you know, gain at least few knots.
40 pounds.
Wow.
I had
Although,
a question.
Oh, go for it.
I had a question and a couple of comments. This goes back to the flap tracks that you said Pat Lee has. Do you know if the flap tracks are the same on the twin and the single?
Oh, that would be a perfect Kristen Winter or Zach Grant question. I don't
believe they are on the later model electric flaps are the same, I believe.
B model 66.
Yes.
Twinkie.
Yeah, I believe they're the same.
All right. I don't know that I'm in need at the moment, but I think there is a potential in the future. So I'm trying to keep my eyes open on that.
Oh,
And
yeah,
then-
you should. It's one of the first things I did 30 years ago with mine was put the rollers in. It makes a huge difference in wear.
I think I have the nylon rollers in. I'm going to have to
Oh, well,
double
you're
check
good.
that.
Man. You're good. Yeah.
Yeah, you're good. That's what goes
Okay.
in there, and just keep them clean and you'll do quite well. I have one flap track that was worn when I got the plane because somebody didn't maintain it right. And sooner or later, I'm going to replace it. That's very good to know that they're on the twins. And mine got a 260B.
Nice, nice. I have the R Stoll and the Miller on the twin. And with the R Stoll on there, my stall is listed at 52 miles an hour with a 3,800 pound gross. So the R Stoll really brings it down. I don't know what VGs would do on top of that, but I went onto the Micro Aerodynamics website and it says on the Comanche 250 and the 260 that it lowers VS by 8 miles an hour and VSO by 5 miles an hour. Of course, that's their numbers.
Wow.
Your mileage may vary. So
That's
yeah,
a pretty interesting number.
Yeah, I flew a 1971 or 72 310Q that I rented for a while. It had VGs on it. And it was amazing how much the VGs lowered stall, VMC, and actually added gross weight capability to the aircraft. It's just the VGs. If this airplane had not had the R Stoll high lift kit on it when I got it, I would have put VGs on it right away because it seems to me to be one of the best bangs for the buck.
Yeah, we've got the VGs, and I agree 100% that does it changes the speeds at least that much.
And I haven't noticed any drop off on the high end from talking to people or what I've noticed. How about you?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's just, it seems like it's all upside and very low risk and a very large gain for a small investment.
And I don't think it's that, I agree, it's not a big investment, then it gives you a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. It was nice talking to everybody. I need to sign off for another Zoom call. So I will look forward to catching folks next time. Thanks you all.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, everybody. I'm going to call it here. I can leave the meeting open if others want to chat. Do want to do just a special huge thank you to Jeff for bringing this to our attention and giving it a try and figuring it out. And to Ned for working with us to try to make just airplanes safer and better and more able to handle all sorts of stuff that we can't anticipate, like landing light outages or field lights that don't work or weird stuff. And everybody else just for being here and being part of this. Thanks a million.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate all everybody's interest in this. And we are going to donate 1 unit for you guys to, I don't know if you want to do a raffle or a secret auction, a silent auction, but there will be a 1 unit donated to the Comanche group.
Yay, type support.
Yes.
Make him an honorary Comanche pilot.
That's very nice. Thank you very much. That's absolutely delightful.
Oh, that is great.
And then if you guys have any questions, obviously, you know, we received a lot of calls from the Comanche guys, but do call us, email us, you know, send us any, you know, way you want to get your answer questions.
I have a comment about, no, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, actually.
No, I had a comment for him. Are you still there? Okay, about Lancers. If you're still here, are you acquainted with the Lancer Legacy? The old
I am familiar with the Legacy, yes.
There was a half a dozen of us at Gillespie Field that helped this buddy of ours build one as a Reno racer. He had a TIO 550 Continental in it to start with. And at the second year, he took it out. He's a 28,000 hour Boeing pilot. And he's a 888 pilot now, and he's right almost to the end of his age, which he's still a lot younger than I am. The second year out, he won sport gold with it. And of course, since I was the avionics guy, I had to go up with him, which was really, I was afraid to ask him for a ride. And the seats weren't quite in yet. And it was virtually like flying something with orange crates in it and part of a car seat in back of you. I mean, I'm used to that because I've flown some real crap. I don't care as long as the seat belts work. And I'm a stick and rudder guy anyway. And he said, climb in, you're going to go up and we're going to go through this Garmin stack in here and you're going to make sure everything's good to go. And we pulled out of Gillespie Field and he says, you okay on a straight up climb? And I said, sure, why not? And he called and he got a hand over to air traffic and he says, Lancer, his number is 5S. That's his flight number anyway. And he says, leaving Gillespie, request 12,500 straight up. And apparently one of the ATCs recognized his voice and he said, okay, Dave, you're clear to go. And he pulled back on that thing and he jammed that throttle forward and what a ride. And we went up to 12.5. He didn't do IFR that day. And he leveled it off and he says, are you watching the speedometer? And I said, yeah. And he says, let it ease out at 300. And he says, and it's your airplane. And I went, you're gonna let me fly this thing? And he goes, well, you're flying a Comanche, you flew a Glass Air 1 RG, and your airplane. And it was one of the thrills of my, I've never had my hands on anything like that. And at 300, it was going slow because his top speed in the thing is about 455 on the course at Reno. And boy, oh man, what a piece of equipment. And then I said, okay, quick question. How much do I have on the stick? He says 3/4 of an inch side to side and 3/4 of an inch 4 1/2. I says, how about the rudders? He says, about the same. Roger that. He said, your airplane. What a ride. What a thrill. And
yes,
he
you know, yes, the Lance Air is very sensitive on the pitch. I mean, exactly 3/4 of an inch. That's it.
That's it. I got the same directions and the one and only time I was in a helicopter. I don't know what came over me except the guy was a previous Comanche flyer. It was a Bell Jet Ranger, and I asked him the same thing. And I said, you take care of the thing that makes this thing stay in the sky. I'm going to just do the one, and I'm just going to do the cyclic. And he goes, okay. And I asked him the same thing, and he said, 3/4 of an inch, 4 1/2 side to side, and leave the rudders alone. I got 20 minutes in that thing. Interesting. But so you got to know when to light touch. But that Lance Air, what a piece of equipment. He had everything in it. And it was most of it was carbon fiber. And that was the first time I was ever in anything with speed brakes. We were coming back into Gillespie and I said, Dave, aren't we going a little bit fast? And he said, yeah, well, you know, we're okay. Let me get in touch. Let's go with the tower. And he says, and let me get cleared for the turn to 27 right. And he did like that. And I'm looking over at the speedometer and we're still about 175. And, you know, and we're inside it. We're right at 3 mile final. And I'm going like, how do you do this, boss? Are you going to do a bolter wave off or a go around? And he said, no, I'm going to put the brakes on. And it didn't connect. And he reached over and he hit the button and the plane dropped 55 miles an hour in a heartbeat. And he had the stick. I'm glad, because if I with no training. But boy, I'll tell you what a piece of gear. And boy, what a handling piece of gear. And
Yes,
he let me take it up about 375. I was really surprised. I said, you tell me it's he said, my plane, and you got it. And he goes, you're doing okay. And so anyway, what a thrill.
These are nice machines. Yes, they fly nice. The landing is the issue. The landing is where it becomes difficult.
He makes a landing. I'll use him as an example. The landing he makes, you can't tell whether you get the runway or not. You can't feel it. I wish I could do that in the Comanche, and I hope this altimeter helps.
Do you have, is your Lance Air a laminar flow?
Yes.
Yeah, Lance Air's, yeah, I think it's a 23,000 series wing. So was the Glass Air. So was the P-51 Mustang.
Correct.
You know, I have tucked in the back of my hangar, I've got a little single seat quickie, and it's got the old GU-25 laminar flow air foil that the ones where the bugs with just a little bit of bugs would just affect them like crazy. And
yes, I lose 10 knots in rain, and I lose 12 knots if got a lot of bugs on the trailer on the leading edge.
how about just a little mist? Can you tell just a little bit of mist?
No. With
Okay,
mist,
this little quickie, you know, it's got the wing in the front and the wing in the back. And if I could fly in just a little bit of rain on the back wing, it would actually puddle up, and there'd be puddles on my wing. If I rolled it to the left, the puddle would move toward the center of the aircraft. But the front wing, I could tell before I could see it on the canopy, I could tell that there was a little bit of mist in the air because the front wing would get heavy and I'd have to hold it back because it would stop flying. Now, I'm flying off a grass strip, and I didn't have very good lawnmower at the time. So sometimes I wouldn't get the strip mode all the way and I try to fly this thing. Well, the front leading edge would get dirty and I'd have to come in at 90 instead of 70. And I broke a lot of propellers. It was really quite a comedy. But I finally ended up putting vortex generators on it. And I'm trying to remember how far back. I'm thinking maybe 45% back, 40% back, somewhere like in there. Like, you know, our wings are 40%. And it made a huge difference. I didn't lose anything as far as top speed, but the front wing now was impervious to contamination. So I don't know.
Guys, if you don't mind, this is Pete Morris. I have been recording this, and I got to get it ready to go back on the website and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to stop the recording at this point. It's been terrific what I've been hearing, and I'm very glad that I was able to get back on the internet and get this thing recorded for those that didn't get to hear it in the first place. So with that, I am going to say goodnight. I'll leave, probably CJ is still in charge, but I'm going to stop.
Yeah, just a quick thing before you stop. So I want to do a huge thank you to all of the people that stepped up when Pete's connection came down after a very violent thunderstorm in Connecticut. Pete drives to the airport for its high-speed internet every time we do this, and stays there, gets there early, brings up the Zoom, stays there, records it, and then uploads it. So just want to say, Pete, you've been doing this for 73 or 74, I think with one or two exceptions. That dedication is what's making this library of knowledge possible. And I want to just call it out and acknowledge and thank you. But and then tonight, when we had this unexpected situation, the other thing that happened is we had a bunch of people step up to say, you know, make me co-host, I'll record. And so I actually was in the chat window a moment ago, what the quality of the recording that we are able to get everybody is dependent on our internet connection. So I'm going to encourage everybody to go ahead and stop recording now, because what we may want to do is, if you can then take a look at the size of your file, it's likely that the biggest file is going to have the highest resolution and least affected by a slow internet connection.